I'd like to call to order Charter Township of Chesterfield regular Township Board meeting for Tuesday, June 14th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Clerk Barry, would you call the roll?
Supervisor Kersten.
Here.
Treasurer Elliott.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Joseph. Here. Trustee DeMink.
Here.
Trustee Vosberg.
Here.
Clerk Barry is here.
Item 4, approval of agenda. Clerk Barry.
4A, approval of the agenda with addendum if necessary.
Do you have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Was that Treasurer Elliott? Motion to approve the agenda as presented by Clerk Barry, supported by Treasurer Elliott. Clerk Barry, would you call the roll?
Clerk Barry, aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Aye. Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 5, presentations. There are no presentations scheduled tonight. We'll move to item 6. Department reports. I'd like to start out from the supervisor's position. I am looking for board members to form a committee to meet with 6 Rivers to discuss and negotiate a conservation easement as discussed in previous board meetings and present back to the full board a agreement that could be reviewed and potentially approved by the board. So I'll either take individuals that are interested now to join this, or we can discuss this at the next board meeting.
I'm in.
I'm interested.
Thank you. I will work on scheduling those meetings in the coming days. Department reports, Amanda. Are you here? Amanda Bowers, Parks and Rec.
I'm going to go first, Brad, and then she's going to do her thing. This is from Parks and Rec. The summer concert season is almost here. Help us kick off this series with our fan favorite, Sonic Freeway, on Friday, July 8th at 6:30 p.m. This Dynamite Trio will have you dancing to the hottest dance hits from the 60s to today. Enjoy the beat and choose to eat from Twisted Street Barbecue food truck. Bring the entire family for Friday night food and fun hosted at the Chesterfield Township Municipal Offices. Thank you to Chesterfield Township Board for their support and to our generous financial sponsors, Genesis Credit Union, PGS Dentistry, and Giffords Webster. Next, bring your lawn chairs, blankets, snacks, and gather at Brandenburg Park on Tuesday in July for the summer movie nights. On Tuesday, July 5th, the 4-week series begins with the showing of Ponyo at 7 p.m. Arrive early and spend time at the splash pad and on the playgrounds. Thank you to the Chesterfield Township Library for the continued partnership in providing these family features. Next, join our All-American Party on Thursday, July 7th from 1 to 4 p.m. This indoor-outdoor event hosted for senior citizens includes a catered lunch, dancing, and dessert. Cost is $20 per person and space is limited. Help us salute America during their summer soiree, and contact Leisure Services at the Township website or 949-0400 extension 4. That's it. Now Amanda has something to present.
Thank you. Wanted to say thank you to the board for allowing Leisure Services to take a moment of your time this evening to publicly extend our gratitude to Woodside Bible Church. They brought families together to clean up our community on Kids to Parks Day. No amount of wind, rain, or storm could stop their hardworking volunteer crew from beautifying the municipal office property. We would like to present this certificate of recognition to Associate Pastor Andy Wisman on behalf of his group. It is with tremendous thanks and appreciation that Chesterfield Township recognizes Woodside Bible Church for the donation of energy, time, and potted flowers that now beautifully adorn our senior park.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Amanda. Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Much is going on in the Clerk's Department with the upcoming August primary election. A couple of announcements with regards to that election. First is that we expect absentee ballots to be prepped this coming week, and we do expect them to be mailed by the 24th. That means you should receive your absentee ballot. If you have submitted a completed absentee ballot application to our office, we will send you a ballot that following week. Anyone can request an absentee ballot at any time. You simply need to send a written request to the clerk's office. Once we receive that request, we will then send you a ballot. If you do not receive a ballot and you were expecting one, please call the clerk's office and we will make sure that everything is in order. And if not, we will make sure that we do facilitate the opportunity for you to receive an absentee ballot. In the event that you receive a ballot that you did not request, please contact the clerk's office immediately. The August 2nd primary is a primary in which you may only vote among the Republican candidates or the Democratic candidates. You cannot split your ticket. That's very important to know. Oftentimes we have many voters who will spoil their ballot because they do not realize that they cannot select candidates from both sides of the ticket. This is a nominating election. That means that each party is choosing their candidates to advance to the November general election. So please be advised you must choose your partisan candidates from either the Republican or the Democratic columns. If you choose candidates from both, you will spoil that section of your ballot and it will not be counted. So please make sure that you do that. If you find out or realize that you have spoiled your ballot at any time, or if you wish to change your mind once you've submitted an absentee ballot to the clerk's office, you may in fact have us spoil that ballot for you in our office and we can give you a new ballot in order to make your changed selections. Again, please contact the clerk's office if you have any questions about receiving an absentee ballot or about processing an absentee ballot. To that end as well, the clerk's department and elections department is taking some additional steps this year to help educate and inform the public not only about the entire election process for the primary but also the upcoming November general. We will be having an event here at the township offices on July the 20th where clerk staff and election staff will be on hand. There will be presentations. There will also be all of our equipment brought out for the public to view, to see how that equipment works. We will have demonstrations, we will have presentations, and we will answer any questions that the public may have regarding the election process or any of the materials and equipment that we use in facilitating and processing the election. That's very important for those who may have lingering concerns. We would like to show you that here in Chesterfield that we have all of our election processes in order, and we would like to educate our voters so that there is confidence in our election system and ultimately those election results. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you, Clerk Berry. Trustee Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just a quick update from the library. Ms. Mattson regularly lets me know what we have going on at the library, and she emailed me asking to alert the public and let our residents know that residents of all ages are invited to join in the library's summer enrichment program. They've called it Oceans of Possibilities. The kickoff event will be an event targeted for children. It will take place on June 21st at 10:30 a.m. In the library. Ms. Mattson would like everyone to know that you can stay up to date with current events and upcoming events, including the reading challenges, and enter to win some very nice prizes at the library website, which is www.chelibrary.org. So our monthly meeting at the library is tomorrow, and I expect we'll have maybe some more updates, which I will advise the board at our second meeting this month. And then a quick update and just an expression of gratitude to Director Bassett, our Public Safety Director. We have an agenda item later on tonight. It's agenda item K, and I'll let him explain the details of that particular agenda item, but I wanted to extend some real gratitude to Director Bassett because he realized that this item was going to come to the board before we were able to discuss it in our liaison meetings that we routinely have monthly. And I don't know if he'll get into this tonight, but one of the things that I was really struck by, one, was the awareness to reach out and just talk about this so that there were no surprises. And then two was the thought that went into the training that will take place as a result of this new weapons purchase. And there's a considerable amount of energy and research that's gone into trying to make sure that our schools are safe, given the tragedies that have occurred around the country. And Director Bassett is monitoring these, and some of the concerns involved with the most recent tragedy at Uvalde involved the ability for law enforcement to actually gain access to the location of the shooter. And so forethought and preparedness in working with our schools to make sure that there are lock boxes outside of classrooms so that the responding first responders are able to access, and then how to breach locked doors requires additional training, which our fire department is very skilled at for different reasons. They're required to breach a door to gain access to fight a fire. And the internal training and the ability for the fire department to work in concert with the police department is I think, a direct benefit of the public safety merger that happened several years ago. And Director Bassett is using all of those internal available resources in a very proactive way. And I'm very proud of our public safety team and the way that they see things happening around the country and have an immediate recognition that that's an opportunity for our community to be better prepared. He communicates that very effectively to his team and to the board through Trustee Anderson and, of course, Supervisor Kersten. But thank you, Director Bassett, and I really do appreciate the extra effort that you put into making sure communication stays open. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. Just a little note from the Chesterfield Township Historical Society on June 26th, Sunday, between 1 and 4 p.m. over at our historical village. They'll be acknowledging Michigan Log Cabin Day. There'll be members from the society there to explain the history of that structure, as well as the importance of log cabins to Michigan's history. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? No further comments from the board. Item 7, consent agenda. Clerk Berry.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Public comments on consent agenda items are permitted. 7A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of May 24th, 2022. Approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department. Recommendation by Treasurer's Office to receive and file the investment report. Approve consent agenda request for emergency replacement of failed heat pump HVAC system in dispatch office in the amount of $12,900 for work performed by Sylvan. Request the Township Board of Trustees to authorize the Township Supervisor and Clerk to execute the amendment to sewer extension agreement with Clearview Homes as approved by the Township Attorney.
Do you have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Supervisor, I'd like to support the motion with the removal of consent agenda item A for separate consideration.
Clerk Berry, will you amend your motion?
I will amend my motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of item A, which will become item 8A. Clerk Berry, would you please call the roll? I'm sorry. Comments from the public.
I'd like to have some discussion on consent agenda 7D, the emergency HVAC repairs for $12,900. This is the second HVAC emergency repair that I know of. And instead of being on the consent agenda, I think it needs some discussion to understand why. If it can be removed, I'd appreciate it.
Further comments from the public?
John Spica, 53978 Connor Drive. As a taxpayer, a homeowner, and a candidate running for supervisor in this township, I went through the bill run extensively like I do every 2 weeks, and it's very problematic to me and a lot of the residents. Again, at the last board meeting, we had a discussion about JC Media being removed, and we paid it on the last bill run. It's back on this bill run again for another $400. There's a ton of charges from Ultima Lawn Care that just add up into the thousands of dollars. Aztec, it almost looks like we've been double billed if you compare the last bill run to this one. And I noticed some additional charges from Aztec as far as, window cleaning that they did here at the municipal building and other places around the township. To me, the other thing that's of concern, and I brought this up several times, is we've got a fleet maintenance manager on staff here, and we're constantly sending our vehicles out for oil changes, tire rotations, and brakes. It's simple mechanical stuff. We don't have a hoist in the township. Okay, by the time, we would have saved thousands if we would have installed the hoist by now. And we continuously, on this bill run, waste taxpayer dollars. And, board-appointed Supervisor Kersten, I mean, this bill run, if it was my bill run, I would be embarrassed. This is fiscally irresponsible of a bill run. So, and every 2 weeks, we're at the same thing. The clerk talks about this JC Media charge. She puts it on. She says it's to inform the public to make sure that there's not, any misinformation out there. But I've yet to hear her inform the public and mention that we have a supervisor's race on August 2nd. We've got a primary coming up. I mean, if it's to inform the public in Chesterfield, well, we're in Chesterfield. Let's inform the public that on August 2nd, we're going to be voting for a supervisor. So let's utilize the tools the excuses that are given, and I just don't see that. And the bill run, again, if it was me before I came to this meeting, I would seriously, Brad, I'd go through this bill run and I would look at it myself. It's an embarrassment. Thank you.
Further comments from the public? Seeing no further comments from the public, bring it back up to the board. Any comments from the trustees? Have a motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Trustee Joseph to approve. Trustee Anderson.
Yeah, again, I don't want to get into depth about this $400 charge from the clerk's office. Go to YouTube, the last meeting on May 24th. Between 34 minutes to about 57 minutes, there was discussion. Mr. Joseph had some
Point of order.
remarks. Let me finish.
Point of order. I thought that there's no discussion on individual items.
You're correct, there is not, as stated. There's a motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Trustee Joseph, to approve the consent agenda with the removal of item 7A. Clerk Berry, would you call the roll?
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 8A. Item 8A, which would be the approval of the minutes from the regular board meeting. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Joseph wanted a
I'm
discussion
sorry.
of that one separately.
Thank you.
Trustee Joseph, please.
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to call your attention, the board's attention, to the minutes, specifically the issue, and just for clarity, I don't know when the appropriate time to bring this up is, but we've kind of gone procedurally a little bit like off the rails. There is no separate consideration. There is no comments on the consent agenda unless it's removed. And so would you like then for the bill run to be removed, or the issues, or we're just going to consider these separately? Because it seems to vary from meeting to meeting. And if there is a point of order to be called, I would appreciate, just from a procedural standpoint, that board members not interrupt by talking to other board members or send text messages to other board members. I think Open Meetings Act requires us to deliberate when we're in public. So these side caucuses that go on when Trustee Anderson and I are speaking are very, very disrespectful. So if there's a procedural way that you would like these handled, I had a particular issue with the minutes, so I asked for it to be pulled so we could have this discussion, which I thought was appropriate, but it varies. And so if we could get some clarity on how you'd like to handle this, maybe some consultation with the clerk. But on my particular request, I'd like to call the board's attention to the minutes, and it would occur on page 6. Page 12 of 198 in our board packet, and the recording of the transactions towards the end of the meeting reflect item 13 as board comment, none. And that's not an accurate reflection of how the meeting went. The adjournment occurred prior to board comments. Board comments were never afforded. Again, another conspiratorial discussion prior to going into closed session, and I noticed that people were packing up their belongings as they came back from, because there was never any intent to answer resident questions, but the board comments did not occur on the agenda. So placing them ahead of the adjournment is an inaccurate recording of the transactions from that night. So I would ask the clerk to just simply amend the minutes to reflect that the adjournment occurred prior to board comments, that it was not a board comments with a selection of no, because I know we're not in the habit of answering residents' questions when we can avoid that. So there was consensus, or at least a simple majority, to approve that adjournment prior to answering any residents' questions, but it's not accurate the way it's reflected. So if we could just amend the minutes to reflect adjournment, and board comments didn't occur at all on the agenda.
So what we can
Barry,
do.
please.
Thank you. So what we can do is we can certainly amend the minutes to just remove board comments completely.
I think that's accurate.
We can do that. Yes, we will do that.
Any further discussion from the board? No further discussion from the board? Comments from the public?
Paul Lafata, 48055 Mailing. January 6th has been called a threat to democracy. This is the third time Chesterfield Township Board member, Treasurer Elliott, Trustee Vosberg have tried to deny both resident and board member comments. Trustee Vosberg, Treasurer Elliott, at Supervisor Kersten's first board meeting, tried to totally eliminate resident comments on agendas. In another instance, Trustee Vosberg, with support from Trustee Demink, moved to adjourn.
Mr. LaFrade, I'm going to interrupt you. You want to speak to the agenda item instead of commentary?
I'm speaking to the agenda item because
as the chair of the meeting, I don't think you are.
What happened is we totally eliminated board comments, did not give
Mr.
trustees.
LaFrade, I don't want to interrupt you. I don't want to call you out of order. Speak to the agenda item.
I am speaking to the agenda item. I'm
Comments from
talking
the floor.
about comments and how they've been interrupted.
You're not speaking to the agenda item that is in front of us. Your commentary and your political posturing is not necessary. Do you have a comment related directly to the minutes that are approved?
The agenda item was the fact that there.
Sir, I'm not going to battle over you. Thank you. Any further comments? I would remind you, Mr. Speaker, please direct your comments directly to the minutes that were item 7A.
John Speaka, 53978 Connor Drive, in regards to board comments on 7A. In regards to the board comments at the last township meeting, I've got 2 board members that are against democracy and are not being transparent with the residents. In regards to the board comments, Supervisor Board Appointed, Mr. Kersten, you adjourned the meeting. When you came back, it was moved to have board comments and answers from the residents answered. And there was a motion by Treasurer Elliott to adjourn the meeting, supported by Trustee Vosberg. So it's apparent that between the motion and the support, that there was no intent of the residents' answers to be answered, to somebody to address the residents on the questions that we had. So it's clear as day. When you left out of here, the intent was to come back and to adjourn the meeting and not answer the residents' questions. Myself, as a resident, taxpayer, and a homeowner in this township, I had plenty of questions that I brought up and issues, and I didn't appreciate being against democracy and not being transparent. So that's not how this is supposed to go. You're supposed to answer the residents' questions and be straightforward with them, not adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public? Seeing no comments from the public, I'll bring it back to the board. Any further comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Just one quick one, Mr. Supervisor. The issue often comes up about board comments and whether or not it is the board's obligation or responsibility or even duty to answer questions. I appreciated the conversation that I had with the supervisor because I'm a very direct person, and I just asked specifically, why would we not answer board questions? That this is something that you routinely do, I do, Trustee Anderson tries to do, and I know that the board is split and there's no obligation to answer questions, and I don't take any issue with anybody that sees it differently than me. But to deny the public's ability to get an answer when throughout the night we had a number of issues that were posed in the public comments, a lot of questions, was a real problem for me. And I did appreciate when I talked to you about it. I'm a very direct person. We had a very spirited conversation, and it was, I believe, your opinion, and I know Clerk Berry for many years. It really had more to do, at least on those 2 votes, with the hour of the night, that the board meeting had been 4 hours long, and it was really just an attempt to wrap up the meeting. I don't think there's shyness from answering questions. I'm certainly not, and I don't think the supervisor, if he chooses to address it, fine. But that was my takeaway. I was upset. I'm still frustrated, but I did appreciate the explanation that it was really because the meeting had been 4 hours long. We had a lot of discussion. So the vote to adjourn the meeting was in the interest of just, I'll stay here till 2 in the morning, but I'm in the minority, and I will always answer questions. It looks bad. It looks real bad because there are multiple attempts to limit speech. But in this case, maybe the hour of the day played a part. I'm satisfied that the minutes will be corrected to reflect that, and thank you.
Clerk Berry.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes with the removal of board comment.
Support. Motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Trustee Joseph, to approve the minutes with the amendments as stated. Clerk Berry, would you call the roll?
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Joseph. Aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 8A.
Item 8A
Regular
is,
agenda.
Item 8A is to approve a transfer of a specially designated distributor's liquor license, SDD, and a specially designated merchant liquor license, SDM, with Sunday sales AM and PM to B&B Jarbo, Inc., DBA B&B Beer and Wine, located at 31723 23 Mile Road, Chesterfield, Michigan, 48047, and adopt resolution number 2022-17.
Do you have a motion to approve?
Support.
Trustee Joseph, supported by trustee Domingue. Comments from the board? No comments from the board? Clerk Berry.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to say that my only comment on this, the clerk's department, as you know, processes all liquor license requests, and just to make a public statement that everything regarding this particular request was submitted timely, in order, and all approvals were granted.
Thank you, Clerk Berry. Comments from the public? Any comments from the public? Seeing no comments from the public, we'll bring it back to the board. I have a motion by trustee Joseph, supported by trustee Domingue, to approve item 8A. Clerk Berry, would you call the roll?
Trustee Joseph? Aye. Trustee Domingue?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 8B.
Item 8B is to set a public hearing for June 28th, 2022, to hear comments on an application for an industrial facilities exemption certificate, IFEC, for real and personal property submitted by National Research Company located at 55911 Gratiot Avenue, Chesterfield Township, Michigan, 48051.
Do I have a motion to approve item 8B as stated?
Motion to approve.
Support.
8B.
Clerk Berry, supported by trustee Vosberg. Comments from the board? No comments from the board. Comments from the public? Any comments from the public? Seeing no comments from the public, I'll bring it back to the board. I have a motion by Clerk Berry, supported by trustee Vosberg, to approve item 8B. Clerk Berry?
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Vosberg? Aye. Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Joseph?
No.
Trustee Domingue? Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye. Item 8C.
Item 8C is to set a public hearing for June 28th, 2022, to hear comments on an application for an industrial facilities exemption certificate, IFEC, for real property submitted by Prevez Plastic Injection Molding and Assemblies, Inc., located at 30002 Commerce Boulevard, Chesterfield Township, Michigan, 48051.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Clerk Berry, supported by? Trustee Domingue. Comments from the board? Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you. My comments are to the one we approved, the public hearing just before, and this one. And it's not related to the public hearing because we're just setting that, but I would like to see what, if any, protocol we have established for the actual, once they're in place, how we would, rate them and offer whatever. So just a word that we can have that available for our next meeting. Thank you.
Any further comments? This is a process that we are reviewing right now with our legal counsel. All of those documents will be provided for us moving forward at the next public hearing. In the clerk's office, the assessing department, along with legal counsel, will have that document as requested. Any further comments from the board? Comments from the public?
I've seen these things come through here before. What exactly does the company gain by getting a facilities exemption? Is there a monetary gain, relief from taxes? Does this all happen without any specific promises on their part for jobs in the city? Or what exactly does this gain the people if they get this?
Any further comments from the public? No further comments from the public. I'll bring it back. Just a quick answer to that. We'll provide that in the documents when they present them to us in the future date. I have a motion by trustee Joseph.
Yeah, thanks, trustee Vosberg, because the reason for my no vote is exactly that. We had talked about these exemptions coming to the board before we set the public hearing with the criteria that you mentioned, and a lot of that is answered in the questions that were posed by the public. So I appreciate you defining that this is really just a public hearing. I typically support these, but there's an awful lot of homework that you have to do to see what the advantage is for the township and how that promotes business versus the reduction in the tax benefits. So we had talked as a board a long time ago about having these. This was prior to you, Mr. Supervisor. So I guess in this case, we'll have it before the public hearing, but I'm interested to know how we know that the person is, I guess the eligibility to set the public hearing is also, worth a discussion before we set it. So that was my no vote, and I think we'll address that in the public hearing.
So in light of that, and because, yes, this is sort of new to my position, this has been done historically, I'll ask the attorney to kind of weigh in on where we're going with this and how we plan on rolling it out.
There's a statute called Act 198, and it provides for tax incentives for certain types of industrial developments in a municipality. And once an application for, it's called an industrial facilities exemption certificate, which is the fancy term for a certificate that gives you a tax abatement. And in general, and I'm painting this with a broad brush, in general, your tax abatement is 50% of the ad valorem property tax that you would pay, in general. So if you're going to build a new factory, for instance, it does not include land, does not include the cost of land, it's the cost of the building. So if somebody wants to build a 100,000 square foot industrial building, they would be eligible for tax abatement if they are within an existing industrial development district. These two applications are already within that district that has been created by the Township Board. So by the fact that they're in the district, they're eligible. There's no guarantee that they'll get it. The statute provides that once an application is filed, the Township Board must act within 60 days. If the board does not act, then the applicant can have the State Tax Commission review it without any local input. So not only is it required that we do it, it's in our best interest that we do it. At that public hearing, the Township Board will then determine whether or not, as Mr. Joseph indicated, whether or not there's some benefit to the community, whether they're bringing in jobs. The maximum amount of the abatement period is 12 years, and they're required to execute what's called an abatement agreement, where, for instance, they will guarantee that if we give them tax abatement for X amount of years not to exceed 12, that they will not only be compelled to build the facility, but that they will bring jobs to the township, and that those jobs are essentially guaranteed. If they leave during the abatement period, any tax abatement that they've received has to be paid back to the township. So it's a commitment by them that they're going to stay, they're going to build, and they're going to bring employees. If they bail, the money comes back to the township. So that's the broad parameter of the benefit to the applicant, and the benefit to the township theoretically is you're bringing in more tax base and you're bringing in new employees.
Thank you, Mr. Siegert. Any further comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, I appreciate you going to council for some explanation. I guess I had one quick question, and I don't mean to belabor this and go down memory lane, but there is a weighing in by our assessing team in terms of whether or not the applicant fits the criteria for the abatement or the exemption. Is that right?
That's absolutely true. That application was filed with the township prior to it coming here tonight. It was reviewed by your assessing department. I also get a copy of it. And it on the surface, it looks like they have met the elements there. The construction is not supposed to start at least 6 months prior to when they file the application. So they can't build the building, have it up and running, and then come in for tax abatement. It's an incentive for them to come in. So they can't start construction for a greater period of time than 6 months before they come in. But we have already looked at that application, both the assessing department and I.
I appreciate the distinction that you made regarding the township's obligation. The petitioner or the applicant can still go to the state independent of the township, but it doesn't work in reverse in the sense that the township can approve, but there is some state oversight. And the reason and I hope I recall this properly, but we had an applicant, actually one of the applicants in these two, who the application was denied by our assessing department, And it was at the urgency of the then Township Supervisor that it be approved. It was approved by this board, and it went to the state for review. That tax exemption was actually denied by the state for the exact same reasons as cited by our own assessing department. I think it's critical that we have the list of criteria and the board is familiar with what they're approving, because this the approval process should not involve any special points or criteria being met because of someone's friendliness with an elected official. In fact, I think that's borderline inappropriate. No, it's wildly inappropriate, but it happened here before, and the state denied that exemption for the exact same reason our assessing department. So again, for all of those reasons, I'd like to see the criteria expelled out to the board and to the public before a public hearing is set, that they meet that level, that threshold first with some vetting and some discussion before we go to a public hearing. So I guess in this instance, we'll wait for the public hearing.
As I said earlier, we're putting that package together. We will make that inclusive in any package moving forward.
Well, and to be clear, the statute sets forth the minimum criteria to be eligible. Once they meet the minimum criteria, you have to hear it within 60 days. The question that you're going to look at with the adoption of a policy is, do they meet your guidelines for you to grant the tax abatement, and if so, for what duration?
Thank you, sir. I have a motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Trustee Demink, to approve item 8C. Clerk Berry?
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Demink. Aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
No?
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 8.
Item 8D is to approve a recommendation by Human Resources to adopt Resolution Number 2022-15, adopting the MERS Defined Contribution Plan.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve as stated.
Clerk Berry, supported by Supervisor Kersten. Deputy Duchesne, do you want to address this matter?
Happy to answer any questions. In the material laid out before you is the MERS Defined Contribution Plan, or Defined Contribution Plan. It's a qualified retirement plan under Section 401A of the Internal Revenue Code. Plan allows employers and employees to make pre-tax contributions to an account that accumulates tax deferred. Upon retirement, the benefit is based on the total amount of money in the employee's account. The option has been requested by employees here. The employer contributions are made on a pre-tax basis if we make them. Currently, there is no obligation and no contract that requires it to be done. This is a vehicle that, if implemented by the board, will allow the employees a different option, and in a case of having a 457 or deferred compensation, they can then combine it in a defined contribution plan and have higher annual limits to their own personal savings. An employee can roll in other distributions into the one plan and have the cash plan available to them without some of the restrictions of our other defined benefit plan. This again is more along the lines, as I try to simplify it, as a deferred compensation plan by the choice of the employee. The only employer contributions would be where the board would approve, if it ever does approve, a contribution could be made directly into this plan also. So the bottom line for all permanent and full-time employees, officials of the township, with no cost to the township, unless it's contracted for contribution, it provides higher saving limits and other options for employees.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Just a question, is this MERS defined plan exclusionary in that our employees able to invest in other retirement plans other than MERS?
There is no exclusion that if the board were to adopt another plan or a proposed plan or negotiate one, that could be compatibly or concurrently run. This is an offering that allows simplification and for the tax structure for the employees to go through the MERS contribution program, without setting up a different and separate program in handling those transfers. So, no, there could be another one in the township if we went through the mechanics of doing so. This is actually for fee base on defined contributions. It's a lower cost one, and it eases the transition process where it interacts with the other plans.
The reason I asked, Mr. Supervisor, is I've heard from employees who say, what Director Duchesne indicated is a financial opinion, and that I invest with, and now I have to take and go to MERS. And what I heard you say is, by board action, we could go somewhere else, but does this change an employee who's investing somewhere else now?
No,
No.
it does not. There's existing 457 plans throughout that.
So they can continue
They
to
can
contribute to
still-
those
Yes,
as much
this
as
is
they
just
like?
an option, an added option with our MERS system that is a benefit to individuals that may want to just remain with MERS.
Very good.
There are
Okay.
other employees that remain with a private vendor or an outside vendor.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the board? Comments from the public? Bring it back up to the board. No further comments from the public. I have a motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Supervisor Kersten, to approve item 8D. Clerk Berry.
Clerk Berry, aye. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink. Aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Item 8E.
Item 8E is to review a presentation by Facilities and Operations Department with concepts to improve entry points into Chesterfield Township, and to authorize an agreement with the Michigan Department of Transportation to brand the Chesterfield Township I-94 bridge at Rosso Highway and M59 at the cost of $26,200.
Do I have a motion to approve? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Any support?
Second.
Support by Clerk Berry. This is arisen out of really an opportunity that is going on right now with the I-94 Hall Road reconstruction project that's going on. And it dovetails into the township's master plan about branding, identifying, and entry points to our community. We reached out, or MDOT actually reached out to us originally and said, hey, they had heard that one of my goals was to tag on to the master plan and say, hey, I want to identify Chesterfield Township when you enter its boundaries and borders. And we had great contact with an MDOT representative. I deferred to Mr. Sonnenberg right away, and we came up with some concepts on branding for this project. Josh, you want to fill in the blanks?
Sure. As Supervisor Kersten said, this is just an effort. We're exploring our options when it comes to our entry points and some opportunities that we have, especially when they're doing some construction to the bridge. Karen, do you have those slides available? So I'm going to go through a couple slides. This first slide shows you over at 23 and 94, the Raleigh condos you can see. It's basically across from Bell Tire and McDonald's. There's a piece of property that Township's owned for quite some time. And as you drive by on 23, you'll notice that there's a tree line there. It used to be there. And we used to have a lot of trash and debris build up. Well, it turns out the township owns this property, so while we're talking about some entry points, this is one that we've heard consistently, looks bad, looks bad, looks bad. So recently we went up and cleaned and removed some of the trees, and we're in the process of coming up with a concept. We're working with the homeowners association, and like I said, these are just concepts and ideas to discuss. If you see on that top slide, that red line kind of represents the property that the township owns. So the yellow line, the yellow kind of shaded area is the area that we started cleaning up. If you go to the next slide, please, Karen. This is kind of as the concept evolves, as we're working with the condo association, just to kind of work to get some concepts and ideas that we can bring back to the board to discuss, to kind of clean up those areas. And as we all know, with pricing changes and different things going on, we're going to do a lot of pricing models just to get you some numbers to really look at, some realistic numbers. So this was the first concept that the homeowner association liked. There's basically a cyclone fence that runs along our property line, and then some trees, and then there's a Chesterfield sign. So we worked on some preliminary numbers that you have in your packet, but we're going to explore those more as time goes on. Next slide, please, Karen. This is another opportunity we're looking at, and this could be a collaborative effort or an independent effort. We're working with MDOT. We really wanted to know, like other communities do, When you come up to our major intersection at 23 and 94, the grass is always overgrown, it always looks bad. And you know, in some other communities, you'll see where the grass looks nice and it looks nice and clean. So we were trying to explore what kind of costs we would incur to have either partner with MDOT or do it independently. So you can see in your board package, there's some numbers that we got. We only got 2 contractors to bid on that, but we're going through that process to look at how much MDOT would pay and how much it would cost us. So we'll bring this back to the board again in the future. Next slide, Karen. This is what we're primarily here to talk about today, the action that you have in your packet. So when MDOT approached us, we came up with a series of concepts. I apologize, these are a little bit small, but the first thing we came up with, there's 4 concepts. 2 of them were monument signs on the side of the road. You can barely see it kind of to the right of the overpass. Just 2 different monument signs. This, when we first approached MDOT, they didn't like this concept. It really wasn't in their scope of work. So this is something that if we decide not to go with this original thing, we can always explore these options in the future. Next slide, Karen. So these options were the options that they narrowed it down to. And these concepts, I apologize, we did them in-house. They're real simple, real quick as we went back and forth. The one to the left was if we were to put a metal sign up with some branding. The problem with that was they didn't like that because it would require some structural and engineering design work, so they didn't want to do that. They basically narrowed it down to the concept on the right, which is painting. So this is a little bit more detailed to show what the final concept is. It's basically the only branding we could get in this project is across the concrete barrier. They were going to paint the name and our logo, and then the blue stripe across the edge of the concrete barrier. Now, when we initially received the pricing that you see, we went back to them several times and tried to ask, you know, is there any way we can do some value engineering? Can we save some money? Can we buy the stencil? And after a series of back and forth, that was the best price they could give us, is the price you have in front of us. So really, we just wanted to bring it back to the board so you could have a discussion whether you feel like this is something we should do or not.
Thank you, sir. Comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
First, I want to say thanks, Supervisor. I know sitting in on the planning meetings and part of the master plan involved the fact that we can't really identify where you're at when you're on 94, and there's not a lot of sort of branding that goes on. And I liked the discussion about the comparison to Oak Park. So when you're traveling and you go in, like you're aware. So the slide that was before this that had the structural mounting, I like that, and I thought, you know, that to me sort of fits with the master plan. But the problem I have is the design that's there, it just makes me feel like I got into the wrong business, you know. The painting business is extremely lucrative because if you can stencil out Chesterfield on an overpass and collect $26K, I feel real dumb. I'd feel even more dumb voting to approve that. So for that reason, I don't think this is a good idea at all. I do like the concept, and I was very proud of the master plan that looked at a lot of issues, and I know that was the attempt here. But you know, we're still into the floor at the historic village, which is about the same cost. So maybe we get that money back. We could paint up our overpasses, but this one is really tough to. I don't even know how I would encounter a resident if I bump into them in the grocery store and they say, "You voted yes for 26 grand for half a gallon of paint?" I don't sleep well with that one, so I'm gonna be a no on this one.
Thank you, sir. Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I supported the motion because I wanted to have the discussion. As Trustee Joseph pointed out, I agree. I'm very excited about Chesterfield being brought up to speed with some of our other contemporary communities and having some branding and having some entry point delineation in terms of people know where they are. I'm very proud to be from Chesterfield. I know all of us are who live here. We have so much to offer. However, what MDOT is offering us, I don't believe is quite what I'm looking for when I'm looking for a brand for Chesterfield. I understand that it's our only option because of what of MDOT restrictions. However, I will be a no vote as well because, like Trustee Joseph, I don't see the value in this particular brand, although I understand that it is the only thing MDOT is offering us, and it's essentially their party. So, but I'm not going to pay $26,000 to go to it. I don't think that's a wise decision or a wise investment of taxpayer dollars. I would like to definitely explore in the future, though, some other options for that branding, whether that's the monument or whether it's some other option. I'd rather hold on to that cash now and see what our options are in the future. I don't think this is quite what I'm looking for when it comes to branding for our township.
Further comments? Trustee Domingue.
I understand we got to do branding, and I don't care for this, not the painting on the bridge. I also like when you're going down 696, is that what it is, David, Oak Park? I knew it was someplace over Pleasant Ridge. Or if you're going down south on 75 into Ohio, there's a whole bunch of them down there. I would love to see like something like that wrought iron, maybe not master or a monument sign off to the side, but the painting on the concrete on the bridge, to me, I hate to say it, looks tacky. So I can't support this one.
Trustee Mossberg.
Kind of ditto to everything that's been said, and I too really want to see us do some branding and with the entrance points into the township, because we do have, sometimes there is an identity problem. It looks like to me that this bridge construction at some point is going to have to get some renovation to it anyway, so maybe we have the second bite at the apple when they fix that bridge. But I would rather see, if we want to do something now, I'd rather see that concept of those signs that were off to the side of the road where we control the design than that paint on the bridge. Thank you.
No further comments? Treasurer Elliott.
I want to thank Supervisor Kersten for having the vision to push this discussion with MDOT. I know that that was a big ordeal for you, and it's unfortunate that they didn't have a better solution than this, but it sounds like at least we're having a really great discussion tonight, and I appreciate that.
Comments from the public?
Mike Orton, 50393 Bauer. Looking at that from a structural perspective, it really just looks like window dressing at this point, and dare I say, almost like graffiti. It wouldn't be worth really any cost, let alone $26,000. But also, looking at it in itself, the colors don't even really represent the township very well. I mean, you have this mediocre blue over this decaying gray. You're better off going with a more permanent option of an actual sign either on the bridge in the not too distant future or off to the side. In fact, even probably cooler concept would be having a bunch of stones put together with the name of the township off to the side. That would actually be really interesting. You can actually use more of the grassland on the hill going up to the overpass. Other than that, though, you look at it and it's not only is it not worth the $26,000, it kind of makes the township look worse in a larger regard. That's just the way the viewpoint is. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public?
Besides painting it on the bridge, it doesn't tell you anything. It just says Chesterfield. There used to be signs out here. When I first moved out here in the 70s and 80s, in fact, we had one out in front of this township municipality building. There was a nice blue sign that had that partial anchor, or I guess it's a wheel from a ship, and it said Gateway to Anchor Bay. Now that tells you something. There you go, right behind you. Seeing Chesterfield there doesn't do anything for anybody. There used to be one that if you came across from across 23 Mile Road and you're coming from the west, there used to be one, I don't remember where, it's on Chesterfield Road or someplace out there. Nice big sign like that. You don't need anything very big. All you do is look at it. It's got a nice design to it with the your gateway to Anchor Bay. At least that tells you something that would draw you to the community. There's nothing that says Chesterfield's gonna, the name Chesterfield's gonna do anything for you. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public?
Paul LaFata, 48055 Mallard. The sign to the, entrance to the township, basically, it's an advertisement for $26,000. It's no real direct benefit for the residents that live here. They can't sit on it. They can't eat off of it. At this point in time, paint a sign, I don't think it's that advantageous. The first part of the presentation, we were adding shrubbery and fences and everything else because of the root cause of having trash and debris. If those changes are made, how does the trash and debris get dealt with, and who maintains the cost for the added shrubbery and fence line and everything else? Is that just an increase to the township's budget? Thank you.
Further comments from the public? Seeing no further comments from the public, I'll bring it back up to the board. Any further? Trustee Osborne.
I'd like to make a motion to table this item.
I have a motion made by Trustee Vosberg to table the item.
Parliamentary, I don't know that that's an appropriate motion, but also, if we're dissatisfied and there's enough of it, maybe the motion maker could simply withdraw the motion, but to table it in lieu of a vote, and no future date to consider.
I appreciate the attempt to table it. I'm okay if it fails. This is an opportunity that MDOT presented to us, so I'm willing to go through with this. I appreciate, though. Thank you very much. I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Clerk Barry, to approve item 8E. Clerk Barry, would you call the roll?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, no. Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee DeMink.
No.
Trustee Vosberg.
No.
Treasurer Elliott.
No.
Item 8F.
Item 8F is a recommendation to approve the purchase of 10 board chairs for municipal office main meeting room, a conference table, and 10 chairs for the Department of Public Works conference room in an amount of $9,085.70.
Do I have a motion to approve item 8F?
Motion to approve.
Treasurer Elliott.
Support.
By Trustee Vosberg. Mr. Sonnenberg, if you would, please.
This is just a simple request to replace the board chairs that you all are currently sitting in, and then a conference table and chairs in the DPW building.
Thank you, sir. Comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
These chairs are horrible, but I really don't know where we get the money. I'm cool with the chairs. I'll sit in the chair because we just don't have the money. And I apologize to you, Trustee Anderson, because I know you've almost went, like head over heels in that chair. But I think we just got to suck it up because we just don't have the money, and I'm okay sitting in these horrible chairs. But thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the board? Comments from the public?
John Speaka, 53978 Connor Drive. Right now, we are $1,892,975.10 and counting in the negative for the general fund operating deficit. So to add another almost $9,085.70 I'm a no on that. So I think we could get those chairs reupholstered, and it would be a lot cheaper. So I'm a no. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public?
I guess I got a couple questions here. These chairs I understand, and they are old, and I'm wondering if maybe that's the reason everybody wants to close shop early and not be able to sit here. Don't want to hear any suggestions or even talk to the public. So maybe if we replace those, people would be more comfortable and open to listening to comments, and it actually maybe enter into conversation, a dialogue with the people. So if that helps, buy the damn chairs. And as far as Trustee Anderson falling off, and I think Steve Duchesne also almost fell off last week, our last meeting. Maybe buy the chairs with some safety straps to them, who knows? Be like a baby carrier, wrap it around triple point.
Thank you.
Maybe you can get some, you know, they got all kind of programs. My car's got all kind of programs. It almost drives itself. Maybe you get the chair to be some kind of AI program, and you guys won't even have to be there. It'll make the decisions for you. The other thing is, you're talking about the DPW conference room, and I'm confused again. Is that the Department of Public Works taking over and sharing the cost with the Water Department now? And who's paying the bill? Is it coming out of the Water Department to buy the conference table and things? And what happened to the conference table that was in there? It's been a couple of years since I was there, and it was a good-sized conference table, and chairs had probably, I don't know, maybe 12 chairs around it. I know you spent $12,000 of the Water Department money to do something with that conference room, which is kind of amazing, being there's no DPW people there anymore. Somebody better get it straightened out as to who that building belongs to, and if it's DPW, they better start paying for it, let alone buying furniture that's already there that they're assuming they're going to use. You got a whole problem the way this is being spent. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public?
If the township wasn't operating in a budget deficit, I'd probably say it's not an issue. But to spend $9,000, I always considered when I was in office at the township that the residents came first. There have been numerous complaints. I've walked Brandenburg. Senior residents have complained that they don't have park benches to sit on. And I'm sure that $9,085.70 could be utilized to replace those benches for residents that actually pay to go into Brandenburg Park and would like a place to sit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further comments from the public? I'll bring it back up to the board. I have a motion by Treasurer Elliott, supported by Trustee Vosberg, to approve item 8F. Clerk Berry.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee DeMink. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 8G.
Item 8G is to adopt Resolution 2022-16 for a proration in the amount of $55,241.50 for the Edgewater paving special assessment. This proration will be applied to the December 2022 tax levy for Edgewater special assessment.
This is a piece of good news for the taxpayers of Edgewater, who passed an SAD to have that street re-asphalted, and it actually came under the projected cost, and we're refunding that sum back to those residents. Mr. O'Connor, please.
That is a correct assessment of what happened. Nope. We do have a picture, if you're interested.
If you, I'm sorry. Do I have a motion to approve item
Mr.
8G?
Support.
Trustee Joseph, supported by Clerk Berry. Did I miss anything, Mitch?
You did not.
There are some pictures there. You want to address where the savings came from or what they're?
The contractor, after the project was bid and awarded, proposed building a temporary bridge which bridged the existing bridge in Anchor Drive and allowed him to construct the road with full loads and full equipment going over that bridge. So that is where the savings was realized.
Thank you, sir. Further comments from the board? Any comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Just a quick question. The residents came forward and asked for the special assessment district, and they were a part of the process throughout. Were they satisfied with the amendments? Because I think it's true to say that the project came in under what the SAD, but the expectations, they didn't get necessarily everything that they had. Was this bridge a modification, or I guess the question is better put, the residents who brought the special assessment district are satisfied with the project and obviously a refund of their money?
Yes.
Is that a fair?
The road was constructed the same as bid, but the project was originally bid to stage the construction area in Jefferson because that current bridge was unrated and we didn't want to take full loads across it. So we would have taken the contractor more time with lighter loads and just more trips to get to Edgewater.
Okay.
This bridge allowed them to construct it like any road, to take full loads across and full equipment. So the road construction was the same as bid.
Perfect. Thanks for the clarification.
And yes, Trustee, the couple of residents that I did speak to down there are very satisfied. They're aware of it. So. Further comments from the public or any comments? Seeing no comments from the public, I'll bring it back up to the board. No board comments. I have a motion by Trustee Joseph, supported by Clerk Berry, to approve item 8G. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee DeMink. Aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 8H.
Item 8H is to approve a recommendation by Public Works to have OHM Advisors provide professional services and J.F. Kavanaugh Company, Inc. to perform the construction work for the Morris DeMink Anchor Bay Pump Station Phase 1 project in the amount of $1,450,000. Accompanying this item is a corresponding request to approve a budget amendment increase of $1,450,000.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve as stated.
Support with Supervisor Kersten. This is a reoccurring item. We've had several presentations on this. This is phase 1 of the project to repair at least the removed shaft, the electric pump that's been removed already. Mitch, you want to add on to anything I missed?
Yeah, this has been discussed at, I think, the 2 prior board meetings. And it is to get one diesel pump fully operational back to its original design and one electric pump fully operational back to its original design, which will, it'll be the phase 1 and it will bridge the gap until we're ready for the complete improvements.
And just to add on that, we are looking at outside funding sources that potentially could fund or help us along the way with this project. This is a necessary project, needs to begin, so. With that being said, comments from the board. Trustee DeMink.
Mitch, this is cleaning out the wet well and everything that we discussed at those other meetings and taking the shaft out through the roof and all that stuff.
Yes, it is cleaning out the existing wet well, which has quite a bit of
sludge or sand or dirt
debris in there, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments from the board? This comment from me is we owe this to the residents of that district. In that area, to make sure that this pumping station is functional, completely operational, and modern. And that's what the ultimate goal is here. Comments from the public?
Paul LaFata, 48055 Mallard. There's been a request for $4 million bond for the pump station. I'm assuming that this is part of it. What's been not defined is where the revenue to pay the bond is going to come from. Stormwater is generated by impervious surfaces, and it's processed through the main pump station. That goes into the Meldrum drain. Impervious surfaces in the area of the Anchor Bay subdivision, 30% of the impervious surface, by rough calculation, belongs to the Macomb County roads. Chesterfield residents currently pay Macomb County residents and their property taxes a little over $6 million annually for services and roads. I'm not understanding why nobody's asked the county to chip in to pay for it, but their water's being processed through the Domingue pump station. Charges to support stormwater is considered a fee and should be proportionate to the necessary costs of services and benefit conferred. There's been numerous lawsuits throughout the state of Michigan, and the law of Kickham and Hanley has become very wealthy and successful. Residents don't all have the same footprint for impervious surfaces. Some residents have water retention on their property, and fees should be proportionate to the charges. So I'm hoping the township is taking this all in consideration, because it could wind up being a ball of worms.
Further comments from the public?
John Speaka, 53978 Connor Drive. The board is going to add another $1 million for another budget amendment to the $1.8 million that were already in the hole. Again, I didn't hear a solid plan from supervisor on how we're going to pay for it, besides you're looking at outside sources for some funding. That to me is equivalent to the last supervisor that said he was highly confident that he could get this done and that done. So I'd like specific on what outside sources we're looking at. And again, how is this, this is not, again, fiscally responsible. So we've got an attorney on staff here. I think we need to utilize them. Let's forget about the political posturing, Mr. Supervisor, and go, and you need to go down to the county and they need to pay their fair share. So it doesn't matter who it is. So this is about the residents of Chesterfield. So let's utilize the attorney, because Mr. LaFata is right. They've got some responsibility here. So let's not be afraid to, go to Candace Miller's office and say, Chesterfield wants money. So let's forget about the election and let's do what's right for the residents. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public? No further comments from the public. I'll bring it back up to the board. Any comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I agree with the sentiment that the residents there deserve to have dry homes, and the potential problems for flooding over there are pretty rough. And we've known that this problem exists, and the decision to fix the station, I'm completely satisfied with the layout and the presentations that have come for how the engineering is done, how the work is done, what needs to be done, when, phases, replacement of pumps, and the like. I'm completely satisfied there. The only area that has me concerned is the area of funding, because this is not a general fund expenditure at this point, or will be. It is not a eligible enterprise fund expenditure, because it isn't connected to the water and sewer bills. And what we're listing in terms of the financial and resource considerations in the executive packet is a whole lot of down the road. It is a potential bond sale, and it is the hope for some grants from Senator Peters' office, as well as Congresswoman McLean's office. But we don't know what those, we don't know what that revenue stream brings in relationship to a $1.4 million expenditure, and I'd like to have that a little more solidified. I'm fairly confident that this is not discretionary, problem. This is a real problem. This needs to be fixed, and I agree with all of that. But we also have an obligation to, determine and have clear understanding of how we're paying for it, and so that's the area that concerns me. Thank you.
Quick reply to that, the funding, both state and federal, are being looked into. And as stated previously, we may have to reconstruct the SAD, which is underway also, but as of right now, this is going to be a general fund purchase. This is not a enterprise fund. This is a long-standing problem. This is something that was dropped in my lap, that has been unattended for years, and we owe it to the residents there to make sure that those basements don't get wet, period.
No, I appreciate the clarity. So if it is a general fund purchase, could you advise the board on what fund particularly it'll be coming out of? Because according to the executive packet, the financing of this is a potential bond sale and alternative fundings are being reviewed. So is there a fund that the 1.4 million comes out of tonight? Are you prepared to say that?
No, I'm not. It'll be out of the general fund no matter where it lands, but we are.
No,
we're
not
looking
wherever
at
it lands. Like that, is our finance director okay with that? Is that
Yes, this has been reviewed.
wherever it lands?
Yep.
That's the fund it comes out of.
An enterprise charge, so. Further comments from the board? Trustee Anderson.
Yeah, thank you. Our last meeting, there was discussion on this resolution 2022-14, and it looked like tentatively you're looking at a $13,750,000 bond issue that they rolled the this item in with the potential running the sewer up a sewer line north to 26 Mile Road, combining them together. Is that one of the cash areas that might be looked at, or kind
Yes,
of planned?
that is also an option, and that was presented and discussed at the last board meeting.
It sure
Again,
was.
Do we do nothing? Is that what you're asking for?
Was there discussion at the last meeting, which I believe, of separating this necessary thing from this northwest sewer that's running up, that
Yes.
will run up, and hold on, I'm answering it. That'll be a 20-year bond issue. The water and sewer users will be paying about $22 million back during that time. This is a necessary thing, I see it, but it's also, they're getting the benefit of paying down the remainder of the cost for a sewer line up to, a county line up to 26 Mile Road, which our residents or our users probably will not get any benefit from. That's all I'm asking for. So there's no discussion about separating a separate bond issue on this item at this time, correct?
When and if though that bond sale takes place, it will come back to the board and you'll have an option to either roll it into one or separate them. And that was the presentation, yes. Trustee Joseph?
Mr. Supervisor, with all due respect, you're dead wrong. In fact, the bond attorney that made the presentation made it very clear that you have to separate them if you use bond money for both projects. One was a clear enterprise fund expenditure allowable to repay the bond out of the enterprise fund. This is not. So they must be separated if you're going to use part of the $13 million bond sale. That I'm very clear on.
That you're correct on.
Okay, so what I'm saying...
They could be rolled into one, and that was one of the proposals. Not financially in-house, records would be kept separately, but the bond sale would be one complete bond sale for the total.
Yes, okay, so now I understand what you're saying. The bond sale is one bond. The repayment of the bond would be split. Enterprise fund for the sewer and water related project, and one of the other funding sources, which would be, as I understand you saying tonight, it will be a general fund. My question is, can you make the general fund expenditure of $1.4 million and then go back and basically repay the general fund? So you're going to pay the 1.4 up front, and then if the bond is approved, your position is that the bond separated in-house will pay the 1.4 back to the general fund.
That is correct. That is an option.
Okay. Thank you.
Further comments from the board? By Supervisor Kersten to approve item 8H. Clerk Berry.
Clerk Berry, aye. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Item 8I.
Item 8I is to approve a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to enter into a contract with Midwest Strategy Group, LLC, for governmental consulting services at a monthly retainer fee of $4,000 a month for a term of 6 months, resulting in a total cost of $24,000 this term, starting July 1, 2022, and ending January 1, 2023. Accompanying this item is a corresponding request to approve a budget amendment increase of $24,000 in Department 248.
Do I have a motion to approve? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Support?
Support.
Treasurer Elliott? What I present to you tonight is a Midwest Strategies lobbyist group. They will help us entertain several levels of political interaction, both at the state and federal level. We have met with them. They did a very good presentation to us individually. I asked them to come in tonight and provide a brief or similar presentation to the board. I think the long-term help that we could achieve with this group in several areas, some of them which have been discussed just previously, and throughout the township, gives us a level of access at certain levels of government that we just don't have. With that being said, I would introduce the Midwest Strategy Group, Dusty and Mike Mullane. So with that being said, if you would, you can initiate your presentation and introduce yourself to the board.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Supervisor, trustees, treasurer, clerk, and the public. Honored to be here today. As a supervisor, and some others know, I live right up the road in the city of St. Clair in St. Clair County, so very familiar with your township here, spent a lot of time here, and as many of you likely do, spent a lot of time right over on the water. Love this area of the state, still call it home, so honored to be here. I'm a partner at Midwest Strategy Group. I've been there for several years now, after working in the legislature for several years before that. And Dusty, if you would like to.
Sure. I'm Dusty Fancher, also a partner at Midwest Strategy Group. I helped Nicole Nystrom, who you see up there as our president and CEO, found this firm about 14 years ago. Similarly to Nicole, I have a diverse background, kind of well-rounded, and it helps us see all sides of government. So I started off working in a not-for-profit organization. I moved on to the state senate. I did a stint at the Department of Transportation, so I have some ideas about that bridge painting. Worked in the governor's office, and then have been with Midwest Strategy Group for the last 14 years as a partner there. What you see here is kind of the entirety of our firm, so you can see that we are a small business as well. This is me. Yeah. Mike and I are going to kind of go back and forth on the presentation, and we'll be happy to answer your questions at the end. So Midwest Strategy Group, as you saw from that photo, is a women-owned bipartisan firm located in Lansing. We were established about 16 years ago, and our office is located just 1 block from the Michigan State Capitol. We have 9 lobbyists. All of us have worked for governors, departments, legislative leadership, House, Senate, private, nonprofit, and public businesses. All of us are very well-rounded. One of the things that you'll find about our firm that is much different than other firms downtown is that we're proud to be really policy deep. Anybody that you know that could work downtown can get you a meeting with Pam Hornberger or Doug Wozniak. It's more important to be able to kind of dig into those issues and really understand kind of where they're coming from and provide you a variety of options that might solve what you're looking for. The other thing that I really like to brag about from Midwest Strategy Group is we really work as a team. You saw that Mike and I came here tonight. We have at least 2, many times 3 lobbyists assigned to every single account that we have, because we know that we're not always the expert on everything. It takes a team effort to get things run through. So I do a lot of work with transportation, for example. We have another lobbyist who does a ton of work with water. It seems to be a very important issue here in this town, and I can talk about some of that more later as well. Mike does a lot of local government work as well.
So as Dusty mentioned, we're a full-service lobbying firm. And one of the big things that we do kind of to kick off work when we bring on a new client, whether it be a local government client as yourself or a business or any other nonprofit or anything like that, is build a multifaceted strategy for that client that employs several different approaches to yield intended results. So the services that we include in any contract that we enter into are, legislative appropriations, regulatory, and executive lobbying. So obviously a lot of the discussion you all have had here tonight about the bridge and some of the other items are, they kind of fit squarely in the appropriations process. You all, as many other communities around the state, face tight budgets, but there is help out there, and we are very adept at helping our clients gain access to that, whether it be the state level or otherwise. We attend committee hearings, prepare testimony. We do a lot of legislative monitoring and analysis, so if there's a piece of legislation that could affect the township in any way, shape, or form, we help walk you through that, help walk you through the ramifications, and help connect you with the right people to discuss that. So for example, talking about a bridge project, working with MDOT, we fully understand it's not always easy as a board to work with the folks at MDOT. So helping make the right connections for you and push the right people in the direction you need them to go. We also do quite a bit of bill drafting. So if there's a piece of legislation that you are looking to undertake, if there's something you need done, we also help with that. And then coalition building, which is so important in state government. It's really hard to go it alone. When we talk about things like water issues that, obviously much of Macomb County faces, including Chesterfield Township, the only way you're going to get something done is to build a coalition around it. So finding like-minded people, whether it be other municipalities, stakeholder groups, to push all in one direction to achieve the goals that you need. We also obviously attend board meetings. We're here today. Conferences, work groups, all those sorts of things. So with any of our local government clients, we regularly attend board meetings to give updates on the work we're doing. Obviously, this only works if there's buy-in from the board. So we come as often as you need us to come and present on our work and what we're doing to further the agenda of the township.
Next slide, please. So this is kind of the really big piece for me. You guys seem to be a very kind of fiscally conservative group, and we appreciate that coming from a small business background. And so one of the things that is really important to us when we sit down and work with clients that have recently signed us is to sit down and do strategic planning. What does that mean, really? It means sitting down and saying, what does this township want to do in the next 3 months, in the next 6 months, in the next 9 months, in the next 12 months? What do you want to be your big, hairy, audacious goal? What do you want to do in the next 5 years? What do you want to be known for? And then you rank those out, and then you figure out, like, okay, this is what we're going to do first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. This is a living document, obviously, because the legislature introduces thousands of bills every session, and sometimes we do have to be reactive, but it is certainly a lot more fun to be proactive and go out there and try to figure out how you can use our company to further your goals. So what we tend to focus on here is ROI. What's your return for investment? If you decide to hire us as a firm, what are you going to get out of it, right? So in listening to you guys tonight, one of the things that you talked about was those Brandenburg Park benches. We can help you go through the legislative appropriations process and draw down some money to help improve your park systems. One of the examples that I will give you tonight is Innovation Hills in Rochester Hills, who is is one of our clients, and we've been able to bring in about $1.2 million over 3 appropriations, a $500,000 appropriation, a $200,000 appropriation, and then an additional $500,000 appropriation to help make that park a really exceptional park in the city of Rochester Hills. So showing that community and those residents and that board that there is ROI in investing in our firm and helping us move forward. It did look like that bridge was in a little rough shape. And we've all seen a lot nicer bridges out there. Working with MDOT to figure out when are they going to replace that structure going over. Do you need to have a pedestrian walkway over that bridge as well so that you can get people from one side of your community to the other side of your community in a very safe way? And then if you put that bridge up, can you actually make it look really nice and not like graffiti by having stamped concrete, for example? One of the reasons, my guess, without looking into this, so it is just a total guess based on my background working at the department, that they don't like those monument-style pieces on the side of the road because they're very worried about a crash. If somebody exits the roadway and runs into that monument, there's probably some liability that they're concerned about with a monument style. But we've all seen really pretty bridges out there, and we certainly can look at that for Chesterfield Township as well and get the money to help that happen. I feel like I'm missing something. Oh, the pump station. I really did try to listen to you guys tonight, both the public and the board, to kind of understand how we might be able to help you further your goals here. So there is a fund at the state level called the State Revolving Fund. It's going to be about $1 billion as a result of the ARPA money that's going through. The final votes on that are happening this week and then next week as well. And that will help you kind of put money into renewing your water infrastructure investment and affordability. So that could help with that pump station and a lot of other clean water issues that you might have here in Chesterfield Township, because clearly water is a really big part of how we live and how we play in Michigan, and particularly here in Chesterfield Township. Next slide, please.
So business development is another piece of what we do regularly for clients. And now we understand this is a municipality, a township, but we do represent several businesses that we are always happy to help foster relationships with. So if there's ever a need, we do help to create those strategic partnerships, whether they're with a current client of ours or with another business in the community that we may have a relationship with. A big part of everything that's going on right now in this state is economic development, and I think you are all seeing that. It's something that you obviously have a keen focus on. It's a big piece of what we do every day. Our managing partner, Nicole, as Dusty mentioned, that is her background. So every one of us has to listen daily to her go on and on about how important economic development is. So, finding those synergies between business partners and the municipalities that we represent is always a big focus for our firm. Next slide, please.
So the other thing that is really important to us is that we do everything transparently. I can appreciate the amount of public comment that you have in your meeting tonight and the fact that this is online, but we also want to make sure that we do everything very legally. So at the state level, there is lobby law compliance. That is part of everything that we do. Our fees are all inclusive. We don't nickel and dime our clients. That's not how we work. A lot of other firms you will find will charge you different amounts for a partner than they would for someone who is not a partner, or they would charge you different. They'd say, oh, we'll do your lobby law compliance, but you're going to have to pay extra for that. We want to make sure that our business is run very efficiently and above bar, so lobby law compliance is certainly something that we make sure that we take into account every day, and we have somebody on staff that is specializing in this lobby law compliance. Next slide, please, Karen.
So additional services that we offer kind of revolve around procurement opportunities. So we regularly track RFPs that come through the state level, ensuring that all of our clients are aware of any opportunities that may be out there. We manage trade associations. Obviously, that wouldn't be a high priority for you, but we do represent the Michigan Townships Association. So we already do some work on the township side. We also offer event planning, so if there is ever an opportunity for you to come to Lansing, hold an event, whether it be countywide or just the township or something of that nature, that's something that we offer full planning for with our staff. And again, not something that you would typically focus on, but we also do PAC management, so very in tune with our campaign finance laws and ensuring that our clients are, again, above board legally on those pieces. Next slide.
I guess the last thing that I always like to tell people is that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and that's certainly true in Lansing. We're really proud of our clients. We would love to represent you in Lansing. We would be very happy to put you on our client list. When we do these interviews and when we talked with the supervisor earlier, we let him know it's a dual interview. Do you want to hire us, and do we want to be hired by you? Because my reputation is at stake just as much as every single one of your reputations are at stake with your voters. Annually, I mentioned earlier, there's over 4,000 bills that are introduced by state legislators in the state of Michigan. We take a look at all of those, and for our clients, make sure that you guys come out on top every single time. That kind of gives you like a nickel tour of Midwest Strategy Group. We really appreciate being here tonight, Mr. Supervisor. I'll turn this back to you.
Thank you. Comments from the board? Trustee Domingue.
Some questions for you. Looking at your company and if we go with you, the question I have, and I direct this to Supervisor Kersten earlier yesterday, I believe we had a conversation. We're going into election season. Come November, we don't know who's going to be our state rep, who's going to be our state senator, who's going to be the governor, who's going to be in DC. So everybody, there could be movement all over. So why do we go with you now, or why do we wait till after November to see who's sitting in office? So you need to know who you got to talk to, or this or that. Explain that to me from the political side.
This is a pretty crazy time in the state of Michigan when it comes to the politics. We are facing redistricting, new states. Not only are you going to get a new state senator and a new state representative, but the area that they actually represent is going to look quite different from what it does today. It is our job to make sure that we have established relationships with every single member of the state legislature, and then we also go out and make sure that we are meeting with the people who are running for those offices who might not be sitting in those seats right now. So if it is an open seat, we go and visit with the folks who are running on both sides of the aisle. We are a bipartisan firm. I don't get paid to have a political opinion. I get paid to do a job. And my job is to establish and build those relationships up with people and make sure that we have them. We will continue to build those relationships up over the summer. Like I said, anybody in Lansing who is worth their skin can open a door. But I know what makes these people tick, and they trust me, and they will continue to trust me. When it comes back in November, they're going to go into what is called a lame duck session, correct? And things are going to happen really, really quickly. And it would be much better for this township to have us kind of say, hey, we've represented Chesterfield Township, reach out to Representative Hornberger, reach out to Mr. Wozniak, reach out to the speaker, reach out to the majority leader. Let them know we are working for you, what your goals and objectives are for that, so when November comes, I don't have to say, oh, they hired me yesterday. They already know that we are representing you, and that when I call them up, I'm like, hey, I've got a problem and I need you to help me solve it. You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, I'll try to stay brief. I really do appreciate your presentation. I'm somewhat familiar with your firm. I know that you have a lot of very knowledgeable and talented people in that configuration. You mentioned during your presentation that you could tell from watching our meeting that we are a very fiscally conservative board. And I don't know what evidence you saw there. It was a very nice compliment. But in terms of bringing money in from Lansing or from outstate, the discussion that you heard about Brandenburg Park and the concerns about benches, that project brought $1 million plus, $1.5 million from the DNR. So it wasn't the ability to bring money in from Lansing, it was how we manage things. And so when Trustee Demink asked you the question about why would we go with you now when the elected officials could be different, I appreciated your answer, but you know what concerned me is, independent of who's in Lansing, if you're representing us, I know, and from your pitch and from your presentation, you're going to want to sit down with us and understand what's important to us. You don't even know the ask. You're very successful in getting it for your clients. I see that and I know that. But what would you do for a client that doesn't really have a direction? We can't just simply go to you and say, bring us money. We would give you specific areas that we would like to see targeted. And I honestly believe that our house is not in order. Our house is not in order. I don't think that we are capable right now of providing you with a centralized ask. And so the concern for me, when I look at your client list, you do very good work for businesses, and businesses have a very specific message. The folks at CVS tell you this piece of legislation is critical to us for the following reasons. And then you go and apply your expertise and your wisdom and your relationships to deliver legislation that's good for your client. We're a long way away from that as a elected body, and I think the inherent simplicity of knowing your client, you know specifically what you're going to Lansing to do. I don't think we can provide that to you at this point. You watched, you know Lansing, you know MDOT, you know that. We actually debated $26,000 in paint, and our leader threw himself on the sword after being given a gift to withdraw it. We're not ready. We're just not ready for this level. You're a top-notch firm, and you don't have dollar store prices. This is not I feel comfortable with your history, what we would get, but I don't know that we would be able to provide you with a plan. I don't know that we could come together enough to provide you with a plan, and I think it would be money not well spent. So I'm sorry, Mr. Kersten, but that's, it's you can't bring in a Top Gun tier company and not give them anything to go and bring back. It's a lot of platitudes, and when you talk about several levels that we don't currently have, and we're looking for a long-term strategy, we got to go to them with a specific ask and a long-term strategy. There's no evidence that we're a fiscally conservative body. We're not. We're spending money, good money after bad. I think this would be, this wouldn't be a good investment. Thank you.
Clerk Baird.
Thank you. My question is that we are currently members of both the Michigan Township Association as well as SEMCOG. And both of those organizations, part of what they offer to us and what we pay dues for, as you know, is for advocacy in Lansing, Washington, and so forth, particularly at state level. And so we are receiving some level of service as far as that goes. It seems that, and I do appreciate some of Trustee Joseph's comments. I think in some cases he may be right. I'm not sure we are ready for you to be able to fully utilize everything that you offer. But also, I'm curious though, if we were to decide to do this, and I think the timing of it as well too, I think perhaps there may be some more value in perhaps advancing this 6 months in our case. We have a number of changes and things that could occur here as well. But if we were to, at some point, utilize your services, can you differentiate for us how you would advocate for us better as far as township-related issues when we do belong to these other organizations currently who offer us that service right now?
That is an excellent question. Thank you for that. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to answer it here today. So I have nothing but good things to say about the Michigan Township Association. They are one of our clients. I work every single day hand in hand with Judy Allen there, and I have been on the phone with her multiple times today, as well as a couple of legislative meetings. What the Michigan Township Association does is they try to make sure that the legislation that they are pushing for benefits all the townships in the state of Michigan, every single one of them. And sometimes that doesn't mean that Chesterfield Township is going to get what they need, or sometimes Chesterfield Township might have something that's a little different that is outside of the needs of every single township in the state of Michigan. I will use Metamora Township as an example. They are on our client list. Metamora Township is very concerned because they have a Superfund site that's leaching dioxane 1 through 4 into all 3 levels of their aquifer, and an aggregate company would like to come in and mine for aggregate about 400 feet away from that Superfund site. They have lost at every level in the court to mine that aggregate, and as a result, this aggregate company went to the legislature and put in a bill to get rid of the zoning associated with aggregate, all to get at this one place in Metamora Township. It would also result in about 350 trucks going through the downtown area every single day, as well as many other issues. Now, Metamora does not have a problem with aggregate or gravel pits, and quite frankly, neither do I. My master's degree is in resource development, so it's really hard to say that I don't like rocks. But this is an issue that directly affects Metamora Township, and they feel that they need to be at the table and have their voice heard above and beyond the Michigan Townships Association, and I do that work for them, and I'm very proud to do it. So there are instances when you need somebody to just advocate for you. Same thing could be said for those direct appropriations through the legislative process where you say, I need help getting money for this. Then it is our job to go and do that on behalf of Chesterfield Township. That is not something that is the association's job to do for you. Those are just a couple examples, Clerk, and I hope I answered your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the board? Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you, Supervisor. There's a lot of things that have been said in the comments, and some of the things that you guys have said, you talked about your return on investment, and you know that this proposal here is got you on a 6-month timeline, and of course, in order, you're going to have to work hard and fast, and to be able to prove your worth in a very short period of time. You also talked about the economic development, the park systems, the MDOT, the pump station, and the business development, and the return on investment. Those are all points that I wrote down. Grant applications, branding, those types of things. Those are all parts of what you've already focused on, just in what you've identified here tonight and in the few meetings and conversations with the supervisor. You have already, kind of understand that you guys have already started to think about exactly what you would do as soon as you know that you've got the go button, and working on these projects. One of the things that has been said a few times here is that about our fiscal health. And this last week, we met with the auditors at Plant Moran, and they said we have a very healthy fund balance, and there seems to be confusion here with a group that is running for supervisor. So they all say that we don't, but the auditors say that we do. The other thing is I believe that we are ready for it. There's no time more than the present in hiring the best. And the only way you raise the bar is by employing people that you know that are the best. Some of the things that you've talked about is how you're going to send us regular emails on what's going on. And so that empowers our supervisor to be able to act in a way that will allow him to be able to act promptly, where currently we don't have anybody who is able to research that. Those emails, what would they consist of? The emails about what's going on and how those relate to us?
You want me to do it?
Up to you.
So thank you for your question, Treasurer Elliott. We really do pride ourselves in communications. We believe that we are second to none when it comes to communicating with our clients among firms downtown Lansing. If you don't hear from me within 24 hours, if you call, email, or text me, there is something really wrong. And I mean that. So you talked about the regular reports. We like to send out, depending on how our client wants that, I generally send out weekly reports to every single one of my clients. And that weekly report is a cadence of what did I do this week? What am I going to do next week? What is the legislature going to do this week? What is the legislature going to do next week? What do we need to do to be prepared for that in the future? Are there any interesting happenings in Lansing? So we would always provide you like an overview of legislative session, what's happening with the budget appropriations process, interesting updates with political races. We try to be very fair and give like a nonpartisan viewpoint of what's happening out there. We send along articles of interest. If there are RFPs that are out there that might interest you, such as the state revolving fund, or we know that broadband is really important in many areas of the state. We know that broadband application is going to come through soon, kind of let you know what's on the horizon. Am I missing anything, Mike?
No, I don't think so, but I did want to highlight the political point for the trustees' question earlier. You know, you're absolutely right. We do have some very interesting races going on, including right here in your home for state senate. Those are things that we provide updates on regularly. So we get briefed fairly regularly from every one of the caucuses. So Senate Democrats, Senate Republicans, House Democrats, House Republicans, and also the administration. And those briefings include things like polling numbers and gives us a snapshot and an idea for our clients that we then share on what the political outlook looks like heading into an election. So there's certainly value in that, and it's something that we, like Dusty said, provide on a weekly basis, including all of the other aspects of any report that you would want to see. And really, one of the big things that we pride ourselves on is we build these in a way that will be effective for you. So, you know, we have a way of doing it. We think it works well, but sometimes clients ask for something a little different. So, you know, if you are looking for something, we will tailor it to whatever you need. Because at the end of the day, you know, that's what's most important, that you're getting what you need from us.
Those reports also, I'm so sorry, Treasurer Elliott, those reports would also kind of play off of that strategic plan that we'll sit down and work with you on. So if we're going to be working on, you know, a bridge or branding, we'll talk about where we are specifically in that process as well.
As a follow-up question, so once we receive the reports from you guys, then what are the steps that you help us get, you know, from point A to point B? You know, it's basically we want the money in hand in order to be able to buy the project. What are the steps that you help us with?
Yeah, so depending on what it is, so if we want to use an MDOT project as an example, connecting you with the right people at MDOT, the people that can actually get something done, can help you further the goal that you're looking for, but also making sure that we're accessing the right legislators that can help on these projects, whether it is your locals, who, as Dusty mentioned, we have great relationships with, or just committee members on, for example, the transportation appropriations committees. If we're looking for a particular appropriation, those are people that you're going to need to connect with, and we make all of that happen.
So one way we would make that happen is schedule a day for you to come to Lansing. And you would come to Lansing. We generally like to have one point person that we can go through, and then that point person filters that information out to the rest of the board. So we would identify a day that you could come to Lansing and then schedule out a day for you. Generally, this consists of about a dozen meetings a day, including a lunch or a dinner. We strongly suggest that you wear comfortable shoes because it is a lot of walking, and we'll have you in back-to-back meetings all day. And like Mike said, those meetings in Lansing would be specifically targeted to who do we need to talk to at the department? Who do we need to talk to in the governor's office? Who do we need to talk to in the respective House and Democratic caucuses in the House and the Senate? Who are the key people on the committees that we need to talk to? Who is our opposition, and how can we neutralize them to bring them to the table? Are there other strategic partners that might we be able to build a coalition with that we can sit down with and get them to hop on board? We would incorporate all of that in that meeting day. We set those meetings, we confirm those meetings. We send you biographies of each and every person that we would meet with that day. We meet up that first thing that morning, kind of walk you through that agenda so you know exactly who you're meeting with, kind of what makes that person tick, and then move forward. And then at the end of the day, once those meetings are all finished, we send you a report and says, this is who we met with, this is what we need to do next. What are the follow-up steps for each and every one? What was the outcome, and what are the follow-up steps for each and every one of these meetings that we did today? And that really helps us kind of guide forward with the end goal of getting an appropriation, getting a bridge, getting a pedestrian walkway, however you might want to move that forward.
With the state revolving fund, how quickly will that money move through the system once it's approved?
If we're being honest, I think it's going to be fall before they have everything in place. But that legislation is set. There's a very wide coalition of people who support it, including the Townships Association, SEMCOG, both water associations, AWWA and MWEA are both water associations that support that legislation. The Michigan Municipal League, they always give me a tongue twister, Michigan Counties Association, environmental groups, Sierra Club, Environmental Council, League of Conservation Voters, pretty much everyone from the far left to the far right is in support of that legislation and moving that through. Important about that SRF legislation is it really does start to break down some of that red tape and make it easier for smaller projects to go through without really heavy environmental impact reviews if that's not necessary, such as lead pipe replacement, for example. Or that pump station, I don't think that would necessitate such a big environmental review. You're just replacing a pump station.
So if you have the pump station is shovel ready and we're ready, then that makes it a lot easier for you to get us some money
100%.
from that. Okay, thank you.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and thank you for being here and presenting. I would like to go back to something that was said earlier, and I'm in disagreement because I think that we as a board do know, we have a lot in common, we do know where we want to go. We all want road conditions here to improve. There's been many days, especially with construction going on now, that alternate routes are being taken by people that are very messy. We've had struggles with our county Department of Roads wanting us to pay for part of the projects when townships receive no money for roads. And we have non-motorized pathways, sidewalk issues. We all want to see our township be a more safe place for people to navigate. And we also, we're proud of our memberships with SEMCOG and MTA, get involved in some of the projects there. And I see your organization as being able to take those and help us to maximize how we operate in the systems, in like the associations we're already in. I see you as being able to help us even sometimes maybe giving us talking points. One of the things I used to think, why does an organization like us need to have a lobbyist when just about everybody here knows, we know very intimately our state legislators. We really do. I mean, we talk to them all the time. I'm sure we all have their personal cell numbers on our cell phones. The difference, though, that I have discovered is, while I have very personal relationships with my state representative for a long time, and I talk about things here, when they're in Lansing working in committee, it's a bill, not necessarily anything about us. And they, by them knowing what we want, we tell them, but then by the lobbyists emphasizing that and showing, again, reminding them of that, and actually helping them craft the language to get that into a bill, I just see that as being something that will bring us to a much higher level than what we are right now. And we struggle a lot, even the bridge thing. Somebody made I really don't know how this happened, but somebody made a phone call. We got to find out how we can get a sign on a bridge. Well, they asked for, who do we talk to about a sign on a bridge? It was probably the person in charge of authorizing signs on bridges, but that's not the one we need. We need the one 2 or 3 above that that says make it work for them that they can get a sign on the bridge. I'm using that as an example, but I see that that's another way that you can help us. So I strongly support this and would like to see
2
us.
years earlier would have helped.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
They're on the notification of the bridge for Hall Road that they're gonna, it would have been nice. Any further comments from the board? Comments from the public?
Thank you.
John Speaka, 53978 Connor Drive. I think the point here that the board needs to look at, and what we're missing, is that in approximately 49 days, our board-appointed supervisor, Kersten, could be a lame duck supervisor. So at that point, we need to figure out who the next supervisor is going to be and how the next supervisor wants to take the approach and handle, the situation in the township. So I don't think we should be jumping the gun on anything besides all the other movements that we talked about between state senator, state representative, and everything else going on. But this, there's nothing fiscally conservative about this board. So there ain't no doubt about that. So nobody can argue that. The proof is in writing, and I can show documentation to prove that, and I think the board members know that. Another thing, to answer your question, Mr. Demink, this is an overt attempt by the board-appointed supervisor, Brad, to get the residents to try to pay to get him elected during this campaign season. So he wants the residents to flip the bill for $24,000.
Supervisor, this is out of order.
I am not out of order. This is in regards, you're out of order.
Leave the politics out.
So it's not. It's an attempt to get the residents to pay for your campaign.
Please.
There's no please about it. If you want to pay the $24,000 to bring the lobbying firm, I got no problems with that. Write the check.
Just speak to the
The
issue.
lobbying firm is brought in, again, to try to boost your popularity, because as of right now, it's in the sewer. Treasurer Elliott, in regards to your comment on not being in the negative, I'm troubled that you're sitting in the seat as our treasurer and you don't have the skill set to realize that we're at $1.8 million and counting in the negative.
Mr. Speaka, last time. Come on.
On top of everything else, we're adding another $24,000 to the debt. So this is a budget amendment. It's great, Brad, that you bring this stuff up, but you never explain how you're going to pay for it. I didn't see a plan in here on how to pay for this. So again, I ask this board to vote no on this. I don't think the residents should be burdened to, to pay for the supervisor.
Thank you, sir. Time's
A
up.
lot.
Any further comments from the board or public?
Thank you. Michelle Fitch, Brockton Court. I have a couple questions. It's curious that the term is only for 6 months if you're serious about lobbyists, and if you're part of SEMCOG and part of MTA already, why is it at this point in time all of a sudden you want lobbyists? And to spend $24,000 when you really don't have a plan on things that you want to do, and a lot of you have direct lines to the county executive and public works. If you need other things right now, I don't understand why you want to spend $24,000 at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public?
Paul Lafata. My concern is we're going to lobby, but are we really going to lobby for things that the residents want and need? Or are we going to lobby for what the majority of the board tells the residents they need? We have a master plan. Everybody references the master plan. That master plan, based on a survey of 200 people out of a population of 45,000 plus. So how accurate is the master plan? How are we going to determine what the residents really want and what they really need? Because there's a lot of things the residents want. They're not getting it. They're getting what the board's telling them they're going to get. And that's what's going to happen with this. And in 6 months, is it going to take everything from cradle to grave, from the want from the residents to the cash in the pocket to do these things? I doubt it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public? Bring it back up to the board. Any further comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, just a quick comment. The public comments that were made, I don't want to address individually, but there is nothing in the presentation and there's nothing in the opposition or concerns about the contract that have to do with personal promotion. That's not what you do. I understand that there are some, very passionate, sort of driven comments, but that's an unfair criticism in terms of personal promotion of a politician. You can't survive in Lansing hitching your wagon to a trustee race. You don't bring in the clients that you bring in wandering around in trustee races, and this is a lot of things for a lot of people, and there's a lot of opposition and support. But one thing that I think should be clearly addressed: this is not an image firm for an individual. So whatever your thought of the supervisor, you're also impugning a very reputable company that comes to us and says, we think we can help. And that was their pitch. That's what I heard. We can maybe have some disagreement about whether or not it's a worthwhile expenditure given some of the division that we have on the board. And please, I don't know either of you, but I don't want you to leave Chesterfield thinking that there was any attack on your company, because personally, I just see this as we're leasing a Ferrari. We don't have a driver's license, but I may be in the minority on that. It's just my take. The firm is top-notch. They got very, very talented people that have been everywhere in state politics on both sides of the aisle. They don't exist by, getting into a local township race. The concern I have additionally is the conversation I had, Mr. Supervisor, with this idea of it being a 6-month contract. And I think members of the board who are looking to support this, hinging on well, we'll just see what 6 months returns, is probably short-sighted. I don't think that they're going to be able to bring anything in 6 months. It would be heroic if they could, and I'm sure that they're going to try. But the reality is, in Lansing, you do have a lot of things happening, and there's not really going to be a tremendous amount of legislation that can be put in place, deliberated, acted upon, that returns dollars to us. It's an unfair position to put them in, to say, well, we'll see how it works for 6 months. I think Ms. Fitch's comment about, if you're serious, lay out a plan. It's going to take you months just to understand what we'd like you to bring back. And again, I have little doubt that you can return things, but I don't know if sometimes I feel like we're a dog chasing cars. We don't know what to do when we catch it. We got $1.5 million from the DNR. We don't have park benches out. We don't have barbecue grills out. We made this multi-year effort with the help of we can't even give our residents a bench. So that's a problem. That's a big, big problem. So bringing in a top-notch firm to go and do something for us when we don't even have, you're going to have your work cut out just trying to understand what it is you're supposed to be doing. The expectations are not real clear here from the discussions that I've had internally. And I mean, it may be they're known, they're just not shared with me, which I've found myself in that position for about, good chunk of time on this board. People have their own agendas, and maybe they are communicating to you. I hope that they are. I have supreme confidence in your firm, but this is a tough one for me because I don't think we can provide you with the direction that you're going to need to really go and bring back projects, grants, things like that. We're kind of the gang that can't shoot straight. If a board member is comforted by emails, I think I could sell them on the idea of giving them a daily email in exchange for them opening their window to see what's going on. I could tell them it's sunny or it's raining and maybe get a contract, for that too. So I know your worth. I just don't know that we're going to utilize the tool that we're looking to purchase tonight. Thanks.
Any further comments? Further comments from the board? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to approve item 8I. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Berry. Aye.
Item 8J.
Item 8J is to approve a recommendation from the Department of Public Safety to approve and pay invoice from the County of Macomb Finance Department in the amount of $15,700 for radio service and maintenance. Police Department will be allocated $11,932 to GL number 205-301-801-000, and Fire Department will be allocated $3,768 to GL account number 205-336-801-000.
Motion by Supervisor Kersten to approve item 8I. Support. Support. Trustee Joseph.
Yes, sir.
Director Bassett.
This item's a historic renewal from, they've been doing since 2005. It's the cost for the radios, a price that's set by the state, billed through the county. It's for our 800 megabit radio system that is carried by the police and fire. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions.
Just to follow up on that, this is a historical charge. It's ever since we moved to the 800 megahertz system controlled by the state and supplemented by the county. Further comments from the board? Seeing no comments from the board. Comments from the public? No comments from the public. I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Joseph, to approve item 8J. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Item 8K.
Item 8K is to approve a request by the Police Department to purchase 19 new SIG rifles from Acme Sports that will replace 15 Stag 5.56 millimeter fixed sight rifles that are beyond useful life, in need of repair, and per enclosed report, are not reliable and function poorly. Net cost of project to replace 15 rifles with 19 new rifles is $38,526.62, with proposed funding will be budget neutral, as request is to transfer $39,000 from police drug forfeiture account 205-000-001.004 to police capital outlay account 205-301-970-000.
So moved.
Motion
Support.
approved by trustee Demink. Supported by
Trustee Anderson.
trustee Anderson. Director Bassett again.
So as you just mentioned, this is to replace our end of life. We have 15 Stag arm rifles with 19 new SIG 516G2 rifles. It's the same millimeter rifles, just the updated version of those items. This will allow us for each of our patrol vehicles to have a rifle in there, as well as assign one for our 2 task force officers in comment and the DEA. As mentioned, these items are going to be paid for through our drug forfeiture funds. As a side note, another item that we're doing, and doesn't necessarily need approval from the board, but that we will be doing, is we've accelerated the training to make sure that every one of our patrol officers will be certified to use these weapons by the end of summer, and that everybody in the entire department by the end of fall will be certified.
Comments from the board. Trustee Demink.
Director Bassett, thanks for that phone call last week, what we talked about with the buyout, and I think it's a great purchase, especially if everybody's gonna be enrolled and trained in patrol rifle, which a lot of departments are, mine is, and mostly everybody at my place is trained in patrol rifle, especially with everything going on, like you and I discussed down in Texas, and you know, we're seeing so much of this mass shooting and stuff like this, so thank you, and thanks for bringing this to the board, sir.
Trustee Joseph.
I'm sorry, I don't have much to
I'm
add.
sorry.
No, just echoing Trustee Demink's comments and the sort of proactive way that you've, brought this to the board and explaining it to the board members. It's really the way departments should bring it in. We know the value of this, and we know the genesis of this, and we also have what I guess would be the equivalent in other departments, which would be the maintenance. What comes after the initial purchase? The training, and making sure that people are trained, and having a vision for laying out how that will be done and when that will be done. And it just is, not only a tremendous asset to the public safety team, but an example of how projects and how things should be presented to the board. And I also, appreciate the calls that you make to, explain any areas where there may be confusion. So, thank you.
Clerk Barry.
Thank you. Just wanted to thank Director for bringing this forward, as well as taking the time to have, I thought, a very productive conversation with me in a meeting. I know I kept you a little bit over, and we spent about an hour and a half together, and this is one of the items that we discussed, and I appreciate the proactive approach that's being taken to all of our public safety needs, in particular, the need to have fully functional and updated equipment for our troops, not our troops, but they are troops to me, for our staff, as well as making sure that we're doing everything we can on our end to be prepared adequately should we be faced with a situation like they had in Texas and so forth. And I know there's a couple of other things that you're doing as well that we talked about, again, being very proactive, and I think that that's something that really sets Chesterfield public safety really ahead of and aside from many others, is that particular approach, and I want to thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Trustee Demink again.
One other question, Director Bassett, do we have an in-house armor?
We do, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Comments from the public.
One more?
Sorry, Trustee Vosberg, I
Thank
apologize.
you, that's okay. I approve this expenditure, and I'm glad that all the proper training, everything is being done proactively, and that we never have to use them except for training. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments from the public?
Paul Lafata, 48055 Mallard. I'm not against purchasing new AR-15s. I do have some concerns. I do have a little experience with AR-16s, AR-15s, and there's actually some failure modes. And one of them is the fact that if you don't keep it clean, it won't function. It won't save your life. If you don't maintain it and keep it clean, it won't save your life. It won't function. What was disturbing was there's a report that one of the officers took a AR-15, a current one, that I think Bruce Smith bought back in 2013-14 because we were going to be attacked by Osama bin Laden and ISIS, but that's beside the point. Those ARs that were purchased back then, I'm not sure how well they were taken care of. I put more rounds through an M16 than I think anybody on a police force would do in their lifetime in 1 year. And there's a lot of there's not that many moving parts, there's not that many wear parts. But what I don't understand is how can an officer check out a weapon from an armory and it doesn't function? It didn't function. And then he has to beat it against a steel post to make the stock function. And then they inspect it after the fault to find out there's wear. That's not what we were pounded in when I went through basic training, and I learned to keep my weapon clean to save my life when I was overseas and maintain it. And we're going to purchase new weapons. Is there a log for each one of these weapons, how many rounds they shoot, the maintenance on them? Because there's not that many moving parts. I mean, I could strip it down in a steel pot and put it back together probably in about 15, 20 minutes for you. But the key to it is maintaining it, making sure it functions correctly. And one of the major faults is the ammunition you put through it. Remington makes ammunition with stick gunpowder, and it's a little bit more expensive. I don't know if it's still available, but it doesn't cause the saturation of gunpowder in the weapon to help it jam. Keeping the magazines clean keeps it from jamming, keeps it from double feeding. So you purchase it, you need to put something besides training the officers. How is the weapon going?
Director Bassett, is there anything there that you want to address? Thank you. Further questions from the board or comments from the public?
John Speaka, 53978 Connor Drive. I want to thank Director Bassett for being proactive in the township. I fully support this agenda item. And again, thank you for being proactive.
Any further comments from the public? Bring it back up to the board. Any further comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, just the question that was raised. I have tremendous respect for Mr. Lafata. I don't like the tone and the is there anything that's not cool. But I would just direct your attention, Paul. You were part of it. The accreditation process lays out very strict guidelines for everything from an operating procedure in the police department, from use of force to how weapons are maintained, logged, and it was part of an overall conversation with Director Bassett. I'm pretty confident that they have those things well in hand, and they were addressed in the overall assessment. You surely know more about weaponry than I do, but in terms of the brand, This brand was selected. Sig Sauer is a premium weapon, and it is designed for really combat. I mean, that's their specialty, and as not that he intends to allow it to happen, but these weapons can be drug through the mud, and they will continue to fire. Not that that's the standard that will be met, but they are purchased with the idea of taking into account the rigorous training that will happen, the amount of rounds that will go through it, and it's seen as a premium combat weapon, tactical weapon designed for exactly the purpose that the chief brings it forward. Again, I don't agree with everything that everybody says, but if you ask a legitimate question, you should be, sorry? No, if you ask a legitimate question, you should be given an answer. That's what I understand it to be, and I have confidence in the director's assessment of why this weapon was chosen, given all of the past practices and how things were maintained then. I'm confident that he has addressed those in his selection and presentation to the board.
Thank you. Any further comments from the board? Trustee Domingue.
That was my question, why we asked if we had an armor. Armor is the person who's in charge of the firearms and tears them down and inspects them after training and everything else. That's why I asked that question to the director, David. Thank you.
No further comments from the board? I have a motion by Trustee Domingue, supported by Trustee Anderson, to approve item 8K. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Domingue.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 9, public hearings, there are none. Item 10, addendums, there are none. Item 11, public comments. 5-minute time limit. Please speak clearly and identify yourself when you speak. Clock will start when you begin to.
Hi, I'm Michelle Fitch. I live at 49207 Brockton Court, and I just have a few different issues that I need to understand, such as why would we bond out $13 million at taxpayer expense when normally the developers pay for the infrastructure when they purchase property. If that's not been developed, then when it gets sold, it can be developed and they can pay for it. But now it's going to come out of our pockets, and our water rates are going to skyrocket, whether it's in July or in November or whenever this happens. And it's just something that really wasn't well thought out on the residents' behalf. I don't know if you're doing developers favors, and I'm not accusing anybody of doing it, but it just seems really weird that you spend $13 million to develop property that normally that's a developer's responsibility, like Menards, Cabela's, BJ's, or somebody else. As far as the cell tower, I understand you lost your lawsuit and we're getting a cell tower on the property over by the old fire station. That's too bad too. Nobody's listening to the residents. I don't understand. The DPW department, do we have a DPW supervisor? Do we have a deputy supervisor? Do we have anybody on site with an S1 license 40 hours a week? I mean, it's about our water. And I know that one time you had nothing. These things need to be stayed up on top of, not do I spend $24,000 for lobbyists. The important things are things like the morale in the township that's never been lower. We've lost so many valuable employees, so many that have such invaluable information in so many years that they've either been fired, they've been forced to retire, or they've been threatened to the point where they found other jobs. And other townships and cities thank us for that. It's really a shame. Those things need to change. If you want to make changes in Chesterfield, start thinking of the residents and the employees, because their experience is what really and truly runs this township, not somebody that only has to be 18, a registered voter, and live in the township to run this board. There are 7 of you up there, and I really wish that people would take the time and look at really what the residents need and the employees in our township and treat them with the respect that they deserve, because they work very hard. Thank you.
John Shivish, 50159 Peggy Lane, Chesterfield. As I watch this meeting here, boy, you guys went through a lot of money. And I go back to the school board approves the lease Mr. Kersten there, and I see a comment, how are we going to pay for this? I sure hope none of you are really kicking the can. If you're kicking the can down the road, it's not right with the high inflation we got going on right now, the high energy prices, and all this stuff going on. I think you work for us. You don't work for yourselves or your special interest group, your developers, whoever you're answering to, because I think you're selling us out. You're selling us this overdevelopment and all this stuff is really breaking our bank. And the overdevelopment is really killing me because I got to go let a snapping turtle out of my truck now. I caught him on the road. He got to go. Thank you.
Joe Kadich, I live on Sutton. Basically, I think I have a problem starting with the last meeting where you guys decided you're going to bond the development for the sewers out on 26 Mile. I've mentioned it before. The young lady just brought it up here again. It's the developer's problem to run the sewer that he wants to extend to. It's always been that way. I don't know why it changed now, but it did. It shouldn't be put back on the backs of all of the people that pay the sewer and water bills. They don't get any enjoyment from it. By the time it's paid out, that thing may be developed, but the people that get it aren't going to get they're not going to pay for it. The bonds will be paid, they'll ride in free, all they do is tap into it, and that's it. And their property, because it's there, that we paid for, is going to enhance the value of their property. I don't understand you're going for the bonds, but I'd like to see when you do, I know you have to post it someplace, put an announcement on your webpage, not just hide it in some paper that nobody's going to know about it, because associated with that is the idea that they have maybe 50 or 54 days to sign something saying they don't agree with it and they opt out of it. And if you get enough people that do that, then you're sunk out of sight. You're going to have to find another way to develop that. And whether I make supervisor or not, I'm going to make sure that enough people know about that it'll happen. You want to take it on, take it out onto the general fund to figure out how you're going to do it with the general fund. But you shouldn't make the people that are now the current water and sewer people pay for it. We don't even know what's happened with the sewer and water department for the last 4 or 5 years. Why we're in a deficit now. You're spending more money. We don't know who runs the department. We don't know what happened to the money that should be in the enterprise fund. It's short, I figured, probably $4 or $5 million. Nobody said anything about that. And from Treasurer Elliott to say that the township is fiscally great shape, you're really wrong. You know, if you can sit down with the three of us that are running for supervisor, go through all your budgets, show us where you're in very good shape, I'll vote for you myself if you want to run. But there's nothing there to say that this township is fiscally responsible or fiscally in good shape. I'll give you that. You sit down with us, run through the budget, show us where everything's fine, I'll switch my vote, I'll vote for Brad. You want to do that?
Further comments from the public?
John Speaka, 53978 Connor Drive. Just to let the residents know, we've got an upcoming election on August 2nd, primary for supervisor. So there's, I'm running, John Speaka for supervisor. Joe Kadich is running for supervisor. Mr. Paul LaFata is running for supervisor, and Michelle Fitch is running for supervisor. So the residents have a great choice of candidates on the ballot. Again, that's August 2nd of 22 coming up. We have an appointed board supervisor right now, in my opinion, who can't manage, lead, or live within a budget. He's fiscally irresponsible. And I'm going to give you a couple examples. First example is the DPW building that was demolished before it was even appraised with the building on it versus the building demolished on what the appraised value is. I don't know anybody in their right mind that would use taxpayer dollars to demolish a building without getting an appraisal first on what it's worth. Secondly, at the last township board meeting, this board, not all the members, the majority, 5 of them, put an $8 million bond issue for a sewer line on the backs of the residents. Michelle Fitch was right. It's not the residents' responsibility to pay for developers to bring in that sewer line. The developers want it. They need to pay for it, not the residents. So again, the board-appointed supervisor put that on the backs of the residents. Well, I guess if you don't have any skin in the game in Chesterfield and you don't own a house in Chesterfield, I guess it doesn't matter to the board-appointed supervisor. The other issue that I have is with the lease of the Sugar Bush Elementary. It was a great idea. I had no problems with it, but there was no funding for it. So we're kicking the can down the road for whoever's going to step in next to sit in that seat. Another thing that I totally disagreed with was the card ordinance. You know, we're supposed to work with our businesses in Chesterfield as a partnership. So instead, you know, these are companies that donate to the township whenever we need something and gladly do it. So that was a bad move. And then when Channel WDIV came in here Friday looking for the supervisor, he was nowhere to be found. The deputy supervisor filled in. I guess Fridays are days off here in the township. So the job requires you to be here Monday through Friday, so 24/7. So the other problem that I have is, again, Michelle Fitch brought it up. We have no full-time individual at the township here at the DPW with an S1 license. The books show that we have a Charles Belmore on the books, but I've done some investigating, and this Charles Belmore, nobody has seen him at the DPW. So if he's only working part-time, then a request has to be put in for reduced hours. So we need somebody here that's in charge of water distribution. This is a serious issue, and you're risking, Mr. Supervisor, the residents' safety with their drinking water, and I don't appreciate that. 10 months ago, I came before the board, and I brought up the issue about the barbecues and the swings at Brandenburg Park. And the response that I got from the supervisor was, that's the DNR's problem, not our problem. All of a sudden, now I've got Treasurer Elliott that runs a pavilion over there. She discovers that the barbecue had a hole in it. Her husband had to put a piece of steel in it because it had a hole in it, and she wasn't happy with how the park looked, how the barbecues, the conditions they were in, and how the swing sets were. All of a sudden, now that we have an elected official not happy with what's going on at Brandenburg, now we've got, I think, 10 or 11 new barbecues coming. We've got swing sets coming. And it's a shame that you didn't listen to the residents and it took an elected official. So I guess you have to sit on that board to try to get anything done. And as far as the Historic Society, when's the floor going to get done? We've already approved that $15,000.
Any further comments from the public?
Hi there. Jeff Miller, 26591 Harvest Drive, Chesterfield. This subject has to do with the sidewalk in the township. I neighbor a piece of property that I believed was owned by Macomb County, deemed non-buildable. Come to find out, it's owned by the Macomb County Road Commission, I guess. And for years, the trees have encroached into the wires. For years, the students of Carcanord Elementary cannot go from the end of the subdivision to 24 Mile, or to Chesterfield Road through 24 Mile. Plus, there's no sidewalk on the north side. So for years, Macomb County or Macomb County Road Commission has let this piece of dilapidated property overgrow, overcome, overtake the wires, overgrow into the ditch where the children ride their bikes or have to walk or try to access to get to the school. Through the years, the Lance Crews schools has said, oh, we're going to put a sidewalk in, we're going to put a sidewalk in. Macomb County, oh, well, we need to do this, we need to do that. Well, I finally got sick of DT saying we don't have access to clean the wires out because Macomb doesn't give us access to get in there. After 8 years of living in this property, I took it upon myself to clear out a 20-foot stretch so DT could get in there. I took it upon myself to clear back the brush and debris so the students and the walkers and the joggers could get safely from Chesterfield Road to the sidewalk that there's no connection in. To my surprise, Macomb County Road Commission gave me a trespassing and threatened me with prosecution for trespassing and destroying their property. On top of that, they have now placed no trespassing signs on that piece of property at the southwest corner of 24 Mile and Chesterfield Road. So I would like to see sidewalk put in there, plus sidewalks put in a lot of other places. So if we have approved those folks that just left to start doing this stuff and get money to come to this township, we need to start there. We need to start making it accessible for people to ride bikes, people to walk safely along the roads, not rely on transportation, not rely on other things. And if I was told the other day when Brian Santos of the Macomb County Road Commission told me, well, Chesterfield's in charge of the sidewalks, or maybe the school district got a permit to put the sidewalks in. I told them all, I'll put the sidewalk in, you guys pay for materials, but I'm sick of my daughter riding her bike and falling in the ditch between the end of Autumn Lake subdivision and Chesterfield Road from Carcanord Elementary. Dozens of students and tens of decades of years since that school has been in there have not had access through that property. I have cut and maintained that grass in the ditch since I have moved in, along with adjacent neighbor on Chesterfield Road. They have never upkept it. They have never tried to do anything, and at every turn they point a finger in a different direction. So I'm here at the mercy of this board to try to actually finally get something done with this. And I have pictures here that I've separated that I can leave for the township if you guys would like to go through them and see the work that I did. And again, I got a letter stating no more trespassing or I'd be prosecuted, but restore the property to its original condition. I hauled out 30 yards of debris and overgrown material that DT has left behind when they come through my yard or wherever to cut down branches and leave them hanging, and just overgrowth year after year. If we want to clean up this township, I thought I was given a shot at it without asking permission, and I didn't try to use the resources or come asking for money or anything. I brought my own equipment, my own machines, my own trailers, my own time, and my own energy. And instead, I got no trespassing signs, and I got a letter from Brian Santo, from the corporate office of Macomb, if you'd like me to read it, if I have time before my buzzer goes off. Dear Mr. Miller, you have been illegally trespassing on and causing damage to county property behind your property. You must immediately remove all of your property from the county property and restore it to its previous condition. If you fail to immediately do so, we will commence legal action against you and seek an injunction and damages. I just, you know what? It's just been too many times and too many years. And you guys can keep those copies, and if anybody has any questions, please feel free to contact me, call me, let me help in any way that I possibly can to get this resolution fixed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I saw you out there working. Any further comments from the public?
Paul LaFata, 48055 Malin. First of all, Mr. Shibbich that left commented on the Sugar Bush Elementary School lease. There were statements made by Supervisor Kersten and Deputy Duchesne that there was a programmer in the budget for 2022. Well, you need to check page 115 of the 2022 approved township budget, because in the org chart, there's a programmer, but the expenditure where you get the dollars and cents approved, there's no money requested. And if you go back to the 2020 and the 2021 budget, there's no differential, there's no $80,000 differential to pay the programmer. It's not budgeted. Take a look at it. You won't find it on page 115 of the 2020 budget. So that's more money that's going to go in the budget deficit. It was also a statement made that was incorrect. So maybe you should, when you make a statement like that, you should put the general ledger number that has the appropriation in it, so we can make sure that we have some checks and balances. I'd appreciate it. I've lived in Chesterfield Township for over 47 years by choice, not because I was born here and lived with my parents the first part of my life. I built 2 houses in Chesterfield. I paid for all the township construction fees, tap fees, homeowner property taxes, supported my local school districts, millages, and paid my water and sewer bills. I feel like I have an investment in the general fund budget and the sewer and water fund balance. I try to rationalize why anyone would want to consistently support non-essential expenditures when the township is financially struggling. Well, the word carpetbagger from my history class on the Second World War came to mind. And what a carpetbagger is somebody that comes from the north and for personal gain or political power takes up residence. And I'm trying to find out why. And is this why there's little concern for the constant increase in budget deficits, bond debt, or following outside direction from the county? Like a carpetbagger, is this person going to just move back north when there's no more spoils to be had, leaving the residents of Chesterfield with the bills to pay and a reduced quality of life for the environment influenced by basing F-35s at Selfridge by selling them all the township property? Thank you.
Further comments from the board or public?
Mike Wharton, 50393 Bauer. So learning everything from past several years, and especially what we discussed over tonight about, the whole idea of fiscal responsibility within the township, it's not even really so much a question of the current fiscal responsibility, but rather the future fiscal responsibility. I don't know if anyone's been paying attention to the news over the last several months, but we are heading into a massive recession that could rival the Great Depression. Our Fed monetary policy has eradicated and destroyed the US dollar to a point that we can't even comprehend. And this is the point in time in which case local governments should be taking every precaution necessary to ensure that they have the funding necessary to provide for the most basic services for a set amount of time, whether it be 3 to 6 months or a full year as an emergency standing. And I do not see this board addressing that issue. What has inflation and the price of gas done to budgets within our township in regards to, I know I've fueled up vehicles before in this township, and those vehicles do not take only a few gallons. They take quite a bit. And in the past month, gas is up almost $1. And when do you now factor in with the cost of diesel? This adds up over time, and you multiply it by dozens and hundreds of vehicles, and the process, days, weeks, months, it adds up significantly over time. And the projections are that we're not done yet. This is not a problem that is going to go away, and the economic issues will only pile on further and further and further. We're not addressing these issues. And when we talk about frivolous matters, when we draw our attention away from things that don't adhere to the present danger in the room, the looming danger, when it happens, we're going to be caught with our pants down. We're literally going to face a situation that everybody's going to start pointing fingers, everybody's going to start being angry, and at that point in time, why even concern yourself with ritual politics? You gotta be more concerned about just keeping people sane. Our entire society feels like it's at a powder keg, and we need to reinstill civility to a degree that doesn't lead to any type of unnecessary conflicts with each other or with our systems that keep everything functional. With all that being said, tonight and tomorrow and the next day, I believe, we have got a massive heat wave going on. In fact, tomorrow may be the hottest day in years. So please stay hydrated, look toward fire protection because because we could see any fire dangers. So look towards anything for fire safety. That would be very helpful. Remember, keep in the shade, avoid things like heat stroke, heat exhaustion. It's going to be hot. Please take care of yourselves. Please take care of your health. We all need to look after each other. And like I've been constantly saying, look toward a form of communitarianism, what we need to do in our community, because if not, we don't have a community. We just have a municipality with just a patchwork of people. We need to be a community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public? Bring it back up to the board. Trustee Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'm going to try to answer some of the questions. I'm going to start. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name in the first. I thought you said Miller. Mr. Miller? Mr. Miller, I really I commend you and I thank you. I know the area that you're talking about. I don't know the entirety of your difficulties. I do remember seeing something on Facebook. I think you even posted a letter, and you had an interesting question, which was, how do I restore the property? Am I supposed to go back and put all the debris back? Is that the ask? And I remember.
I spoke with Brian Santo and told him that I would regrade and seed. I bought MDOT seed to put it back along the corridor 24.
Mr. Miller, if I can interrupt, Trustee Joseph, please.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt him because I'm in 100% agreement with him, but he just doesn't. You can see the
We appreciate your plight.
You can see the passion for his community, and he's trying to explain himself. He's not familiar with politics, right? And what happens is you go out with what seems to be a very common sense approach to enhancing your community, and then you run like a buzzsaw you run headlong into a governmental buzzsaw that sees liability for your equipment, liability for you, liability for this, liability for that, and I like to work in that space because anybody who puts the time and investment that you did to help your community, you have to find a way that fits within the governmental environment. And I appreciate your presentation tonight, and I think that there are people on this board who they were nodding along as you were talking because they knew all of the environmental traps, governmental concerns and liabilities, and they can see both sides. And what we need to do, and what I pledge to you to do, and I think the supervisor is probably already all over this in his head, what he's going to be doing tomorrow and who's he's going to, is we have to find a way to take the energy and the commitment that somebody like you brings to this community and fit it neatly into the the confines of government, just diplomatically put. There is a way to do that. Your approach was perfect, which was to simply say, you're my elected officials, help me figure out, and I'm pleading with this board to help me find the solution. I think you will. I think you will. I'm certainly going to do whatever I can, and I think I'll find a lot of support. I think you handled it well. Let's not go to war just yet, because I think that when there maybe is some advocacy from this board and we talk, we can find the common. It's a difficult thing, and I'm going to talk a little bit in my remainder of my comments about an area that's very similar to this. The comments about the $13 million, the cell tower, there are big concerns I have with how we spend money in relationship to something that Mr. Wharton said at the end, which is a deep concern for where we go as a country, state, and then it trickles down to the local municipalities. One of the biggest challenges we have moving forward is all of our employee contracts are up, and contract negotiations are going to be very, very difficult. Our employees are, like every other municipality, losing ground when you factor in inflation. So just to try to help keep our employees and create an environment where we don't lose staff, we're going to have to really take a look at our compensations and our packages, and that's going to be a very heavy lift, because in most budget discussions we talk about the amount of money that's represented in employee costs and employee benefits. So that's a huge expenditure, and so some of the other spending that we're doing I would like to see post, and I'm going to continue to vote no on pretty much all non-essential spending. We can have a debate. Probably the most, I think, legitimate debate was about the pump station. That, I think, is an expenditure we all agree need to go. We need to spend the money. Where and how is a separate debate, and it seems like you know, there's an opinion that I value that says, look, the time for action is now, and we can figure this out, and that's okay. I just see it differently. I don't like the idea of a $13 million bond to put infrastructure in the north end, because we won't realize any return on that investment for some time. And it's predicated on the belief that if you build it, they will come. And on the verge of a potential economic collapse, what happens when we make the investment and then they don't come because financially they're not able? And I don't see that as real wise. But again, it's just my opinion. Concerns Mr. Shibis talked about with regard to the higher energy cost is another expenditure that continues to move forward. That is really scary because we do have big pieces of equipment that take a lot of fuel, and so we're really we're battling it on all fronts. I want to thank Mr. Kadich because his comments about the chairs and the levity that he brought to the meeting was like just perfectly timed and very appropriate, and thanks for that. On a more serious note, with regard to the $13 million bond, if you don't have a deputy and you don't have a superintendent, do you take on $13 million of new projects? And that was also a concern. I don't think you do. I think you need to have people in place that can marshal the project from beginning to end. And our priority on a superintendent and deputy, I think are first. That's the first step before you take on the projects. In terms of the concerns expressed about the S1, I'm going to let Supervisor Kersten, if he chooses to address that. But when it came to my attention, the first question I had for him was the resident safety as it relates to drinking water. And you can debate and have, you can fire a lot of things this way, but the safety of the residents in terms of the drinking water has never been at risk. There has never been an S1 test, I guess, or a water quality test performed by an S1 licensed person that has not occurred. We are in complete compliance with state monitoring, which is very strict, and the provisions for contracting out an S1 license are a way of meeting the standard. You don't have to have a full-time person. It's preferred, and I think that's the avenue that the supervisor is going. Again, I don't want to get too out there. He can explain it if he chooses, but in terms of water quality safety, it's been adhered to and maintained throughout. With regard to A philosophical issue that I would like our board to weigh in on and take a look at has to do with code enforcement and ordinance, and I find myself maybe as frustrated as Mr. Miller, and I have the benefit of 12 years in politics on this board, and I still get frustrated because I don't understand, when there's a very clear common sense approach, why we complicate things. And we have a code enforcement team, and I don't understand how we deploy our resources as it relates to enforcing code enforcement. If we have a number of complaints from residents who are unable to enjoy the quality of their property because of violations by their neighbor, then you have an obligation to really vigilantly enforce code. So my inability to enjoy my property because you let weeds and things grow on your property requires government intervention. That's why we have the ordinances. We spend a lot of time talking to individuals where there is no complaint. The complaint is perhaps a violation of the rule, but there's no injured party. So in my particular instance, and the example that I brought and had a lengthy conversation was a non-conforming fence, a resident who has a non-conforming fence. They went to the Zoning Board of Appeals and they were denied. The fence is supposed to be 5 feet, it's 2 feet. The petitioner brought forward half the neighborhood that said it's a beautiful fence. It's a very expensive vinyl-sided fence, and if you drive through my subdivision, you'll have to pass a dozen dilapidated fences which are in complete disrepair, and those are not a problem. The wind blew it down, and they could leave it however they want to leave it. Some of the people I talk to say, I don't really want to deal with trying to repair the fence because I know what will happen with the code enforcement, and I'll just leave it as it is. Person puts up a privacy fence, the entire neighborhood is supportive, it violates the rule. 2 feet, you gotta move it back. Well, that's thousands of dollars of expense. Well, you should have got a permit. Yeah, I screwed that one up. But you go to Zoning Board of Appeals, it's a couple $100 fees to get on, and it's denied because you violated the rule. A year later, no complaints. Everybody in the neighborhood's like, hey, you're a great neighbor. You put a lot of money into your property, it looks nice. You get a letter from code enforcement. 14 days, you could find yourself in court. We're going to take legal action, and you wonder, why do we choose to deploy our resources in that way? Because in the same month that I've been dealing with that, I get a letter from a resident who is at her wit's end, and she asks me, can I come to the board meeting? I said, when is it? I tell her, oh, I got to work, I'm never going to, but she sends me a statement, I'd like to share it with you. Good evening. We are residents at 26, by the way, this message is written by Ms. Catherine Hillock Mowat. Good evening. We are residents at 26273 Maple Ridge for the past 22 years. The past 3 years, the property behind us has begun to be developed, and we have had to call to have it mowed. I started this year calling well before the holiday weekend. Today is June 13th, and it still is yet to be mowed. Residents on Maple Ridge have children and pets that are in our yards. The owners of this property are creating hazardous conditions for our families and pets. Insects and rodents are known to continue to come out of these unkept fields. Prior to May 27th, pine trees were planted on the top of the berm, and she sends pictures. It was overgrown when those trees were planted. The weeds now cover those trees and are over the privacy fences. We like our neighbors to do our part to keep our properties well maintained. We are asking that the owner be held accountable, like all the other residents of the township, to maintain their property. I won't share with you all the messages, but this individual says that the property owner is friends with many of us on the board, and so we don't enforce those ordinances. We go after the low-hanging fruit. We go after the ones with no complaints but have violated the rules. Philosophically, I think we need to get to a place where we know our resources and we know that there are probably, I don't know what the number is, it's more than Director Bassett can enforce. But if we set up cars on 23 Mile Road and stopped everybody at 5 miles an hour, over the speed limit. They are violating the law, but we can't keep up. We can't keep up with that kind of enforcement. So we prioritize, and we look at, in my opinion, I think we look at the areas where we have complaints from residents who say, I can't enjoy my property because of the way they're not following the ordinance, and we focus on those first. When we get through with all of those complaints, then we can go to the fences that are 2 feet beyond the parameters of whatever rules were decided some time ago. That should be the way that we deploy our resources, but we don't. And it is frustrating. And the last thing that we need in this township, and it seems like every problem is addressed, our board seems to have only one solution to a problem. It's as if the only solution, it has to fit in with the only tool we have, which is a hammer. If the only tool we have is a hammer, then we see every problem as a nail. But we don't have the resources to send our attorney into a court to enforce some of the things that we've done. We have an issue with blight. We have shopping carts. Shopping carts are out, and we get an attempt to legislate that. And I was frustrated with that because I really wasn't aware that it had become that big of a problem. But after the first reading, I took issue, and I went out and I removed carts on my own. I spent Sunday afternoon putting carts in my truck. No, I'm not asking the supervisor to erect a statue of me in the courtyard, but I didn't expect to be mocked by my fellow board members, talking to me about, I should start a business. And I understand Trustee DeMink was a regular Don Rickles at Mr. Kersten's event recently, talking about the shopping carts. It's not funny. We passed an ordinance that says the business will be fined or pay an impound fee. We're going to dedicate resources to pick it up, to store it, to send correspondence, to dispose of carts that are not collected by way of auction. And this is a problem I put on Facebook the way Mr. Miller put on Facebook. And I must have had 24 people that said, I have a truck, I have a trailer, I'll help you, we'll volunteer. We can get the carts back where they belong without encumbering more ordinance, more prosecution. And I didn't appreciate, the tone of some of the board members. The project started out when the first reading was made. It was a racial issue. I rejected that. Then it became well, there's a problem and we have to take care of it. And it went all the way up until Channel 4 is out at the scene using our carts as props. And it was just a bad image when we could have just fixed the problem. We could have just found a way to take the equipment, the time, the talent that we had, go pick up the carts, take them back to the store, keep our relationships with the store intact, and we didn't do that. And I think it was short-sighted. I hope that the ordinance rollout now that it's been approved results in a strengthened relationship with stores, and I appreciated the conversation. Supervisor Kersten was like, "Hey, I'm all with you. I'm all with you. I'll volunteer too." But this was just an attempt to try to clean up the area, and really anybody that wants to come out, because I'm going to keep monitoring it. And if we get a few carts, I'm going to just put a notice on Facebook. Hey, I'm going to need some help tomorrow morning. Anybody who wants to help, join in, and I'll be out there. I think the supervisor will be first on the list. Trustee DeMink, you're not invited because you find it funny, so you can't be part of the volunteer group. But we'll take care of it the way that we should, which is just not creating more ordinance and more enforcement and more laws, and we don't need to do it that way. We need to do it like smart and preserve our relationships. That's all. I talked too long already. Thanks.
Trustee Anderson.
Mr. Ward, you brought up an interesting point here. I think we should all be aware of the finances, the time we're living in, what's happening to our dollar, our economic thing. I have to provide a little cover for my fellow board members here, and because where does this money come to budget our growing government? Well, I'm looking at a line of figures regarding the old police department before the public safety combination. Between the years 2001 and 2017, $2,519,946, $2,519,946 were taken out of the police budget alone over that period of time and put in the general fund, under the guise of being administrative fees and everything else. I don't have the figures for fire, and I do know that they do continue taking these fees out, and they're going into the general fund to make it look balanced. I believe our 2022 budget, $840,000 was taken out of public safety, water and sewer. People pay for their water and sewer. A couple other areas and dumped into the general fund, and it looks nice and balanced. It has to increase. Beginning of the meeting here, there was a relevant item on a check run I wanted to address. I thought it was germane. I didn't mean to offend any guidelines here, and that was the recurring $400 monthly fee that usually comes up. I will say, though, if you go to YouTube and look at our meeting for April the 24th, that our supervisor at the 57-minute mark and 23 seconds, he will address that by July the 1st. So I am waiting for that. We have a development going on the north end of our township. I believe it's Ascension St. John is building a facility. They went to our planning department. There's no sewage up there. There's water, but no sewer facilities. My understanding is planning allowed them to pursue their plan to treat their sewage and disperse of it. It must be valuable to them. They're the one putting the money up there and going in there into our township. Something that comes up, I don't know, Trustee Joseph, you were very kind going back to this meeting of last week, or 3 weeks ago. We were here very late. I know everybody was probably dragging, wanting to get out of here, and flipped board comments with the closed session. And probably after spending about close to $800,000 that evening on things, it might have tired some people out. The one discussion that really bothers me is the most current one is dealing with the Demink pump station. That needs to be repaired. We owe it to those people. That's what we're here for. They've suffered enough over there. They've lost the fire station, good or bad. The tower issue. Now they may be dealing with flooded lots and that, flooded streets. $1,500,000, that's a conservative estimate to repair it. Let's get the bond issue and do that. It does not have to be part of a $13 million bond issue that'll take 20 years and 20-some million dollars to pay down, that will be paid by the water and sewer users of this township till it's taken care of. One of the things, maybe it is what the folks over there at Ascension want. The township residents to run a sewer up there to the north end, and whoever else wants to come in there and develop on the dime of the residents. We need to take care of the folks over there on by the Demink station. And right with that, I'll wish everyone a good night and a remainder of a Flag Day. Take care.
Trustee Demink.
Mr. Miller, I'm sure some of us, or I'll get with the supervisor, looking at that property at southwest corner, I'm quite familiar with it. I know somebody lives in that, a couple people that live in that sub, so we'll see what we can address and work on that, see where we go on that. Mr. Joseph, your comments. Sometime you amaze me. You really do. I mean, I could drop a couple bombshells right now, but I don't want you to stroke out, so I'll just end it as that.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Mr. Miller, I will often make the comment to people that sometimes it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. You're kind of an example of that. So we'll have to continue working on that issue. That's got to be very frustrating for you, especially because having safe routes to schools should be a priority of everyone. So thank you for that. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Mr. Miller, I looked up on, and I know that Trustee Vosberg and also Supervisor Kersten in the past have worked on what's called grants, trying to get grants for Safe Routes, SafeRoutesMichigan.org, and that's the Safe Routes to School program. And I heard you loud and clear, and I also have experience raising my kids here, very similar issues with the sidewalks, especially in that side of the township, Gratiot and go into the schools. So I think I'll let the supervisor address that because I'm sure he's already in his mind thinking about how we're going to tackle that problem. And the other comment I want to make is, again, make sure you're here, and I'm sure that all of the folks who are running for the supervisor's position will be here for the auditors. And the comment that I made was a quote from them saying that our fund balance is healthy. And so you can ask them when they're here about that. Other than that, I will call it a good night. Thank you.
Clerk Berry?
Thanks. I'll try to speak quickly. First off, someone alluded to the fact that today is Flag Day. Flag Day was established back in 1777, talking about bringing a country together. I think we can all take a lesson from that. Secondly, the U.S. Army. I know I see some of our U.S. Army veterans out there. As you all know, I'm an Air Force family. We don't like the Army, just kidding. We're all the same. We all wear the uniform, right? So like to wish them a happy birthday. The U.S. Army was actually established in 1775, so we've had the Army longer than we've had our flag, so by a couple of years. So I'd like to recognize both of those things, both as a country that we still stand strong together, and secondly that we need to honor our armed forces and thank our military members. I know we just had Memorial Day where we remember the people who made the ultimate sacrifice, but today, the happy birthday to the Army, because without them, where would we be? So a couple of things there. Secondly, you know, you see it's campaign season, it's political season, it's election season. What many people don't realize, I know it's frustrating sometimes when you kind of hear the political rhetoric. When you're an elected official, you play politics every day, all day, from the time you take office till the time you leave. So unfortunately, there is no campaign season or political season for us. It's every day, and sometimes it becomes very frustrating for us, even though we've done it. I've done it over 25 years. I've been elected here over 10, or nearly 10, and it's frustrating. So if it's frustrating for us, I can only imagine how frustrating it is for you when you try to do the right thing. You try to do the best job that you can, and people come after you anyway. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the right thing, and it has absolutely nothing to do with how well you do your job. It doesn't matter. It's about you. And someone somewhere along the way, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, had a problem with you over something that has nothing to do with today, but yet that's where they're going to hammer you every single time. I've been there, done that. Our job up here is to represent our residents like Mr. Miller, who tried to do the right thing, and someone took, in my opinion, the county took the wrong action. I understand where they're coming from, I do, but it's time that we are to represent those who elected us to be here. We have to advocate for them, and so we need to find a way to figure that out. But it happens to us every single day, and it can be frustrating. I would just say encourage everybody to stay the course. With regards to some of the comments that continually to that effect being made constantly about Supervisor Kersten, again, I will tell you, I've sat through 3 supervisors. Supervisor Kersten, by far, has been the most cooperative, the most interested in working with us. Some of the concerns I have about some of the people running for office, they have no interest in working with us, some of us. What good is that going to do our residents? You're going to get elected, that's great, and you're going to go off and do your own thing. Some people have not brought one solution to this board as long as they've been involved. Not one agenda item, not one solution that makes sense. Again, how does that serve the residents who we serve? I'm done with it. I'm kind of sick and tired of hearing about it. I'm sick and tired of all of the attacks and all of that kind of thing. It does no good for anyone. For those of you who don't know, and I think most of you do, my family's been in this township for over 200 years. So 47 years, God bless you, Mr. LaFada, I appreciate that. If you drive down Cotton Road, that's because my family started a farm there. If you drive down Fairchild Road, it's because my family had a farm there. I was brought up with a very strong sense of identity with Chesterfield Township. I'm very heavily invested here, and it's personal for me. So when I see people that are willing to tear this township apart for political purposes, I have no interest in hearing any of that. So save your public comments. I know you have the right to say them for 5 minutes, but keep in mind, that we are a community, and I appreciate what Mr. Wharton said a couple of meetings ago about community, and we need to develop a sense of community, and he's absolutely right. So let's concentrate on doing that. Let's try to get through the political season the best that we can, and hopefully we will have elected representatives who are interested in doing that as well. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. No need to address the political grandstanding tonight. I am seeking election for this spot. If the people here in the township choose to elect me, then they will do that. The time and history in the future will dictate that. Some comments and some facts. Trustee Joseph, you create a nice narrative. You create a nice picture of inefficiencies and bias enforcement, and it is a nice narrative, but it's not factually correct, and there's a lot left to be desired. We apply the laws, ordinances, and zoning applications here equally. The fence ordinance went through the process that is described by law and statute, and unfortunately, as you said, they forgot to get a permit, or they didn't get a permit, and that's the problem that we live with now. Unfortunately, if you let one, it becomes a problem throughout the township, so it is what it is. The lawn mowing, the property owner's been spoken with. He's had some difficulties. It is being mowed, it is being addressed, and it is a development. The water, the S1 and DPW. The water is safe here, the DPW is functioning. There are individuals in leadership roles. We deal with labor contracts on how those roles are replaced, and they are addressed, but rest assured, the water department, DPW, is all functioning flawlessly, if not better. And we will continue to get better. And unfortunately, whatever your sources are inside there, they're wrong. We're in the midst of a culture change here, and unfortunately, it appears as though I brought it. And I will not shy away from that. My expectations of employees here is they provide a service to the township. They do what's right all the time, even when people aren't looking. And those people who are here do that. We offer services to our residents in any fashion and any capability that we can. And insofar as they go on phones and speak with individuals who don't know how to navigate computers and offer them advice and direction to get certain information that's publicly shared on our websites. All unnecessary, but we do it. I don't, the posturing and political jostling up here is, it's somewhat comical to a point. I don't approve of spending $1.4 million or $5 million for a pump station, but it needs to be done. It should be done. Yeah, it should have been done years ago. And the sad fact is that we're dealing with it right now. And there were other people in the audience that could have addressed it, and they chose to argue and have disputes over idiot stuff that I'm left to deal with. It's just sad. It truly is sad. And to sit here and try and run the township on a day-to-day basis in the most professional fashion that we can, and then to sit down and have a trustee say, well, you didn't do this right, or this was wrong, or the neighbor said this didn't happen. That's one side of the story. We deal with these issues daily here. And we'll continue to do it. Mr. Miller, I saw you. I know the intersection well. I saw your mini excavator up there and your skid steer, and I saw you working. I'll do what I can. I did see the posting. In fact, actually one of the neighbors shared it with me. There is a Safe Routes to School program. We actually, when I was the police chief, actually entertained it with that school district, and unfortunately COVID hit, and the walking counts, everything just kind of fell apart. Kindly, or ironically, the lobbyist group that I brought in here today, one of the conversations I had with them was exactly that. Number one, that process needs to be streamlined because it's so problematic for the school and for us as a municipality. We can only sit back and help. We can't initiate it. It has to be done from the school and then MDOT. Completely flawed. That was one of the conversations with the lobbyist group that we had here tonight that we definitely need to address. There has to be pathways and safe pathways around all the school buildings here. We'll do what we can for you. We got your information. just a quick note, the shopping cart, there was a detail that was sent out from facilities today. They collected over 45 carts. They were returned to the points, commercial businesses where they came from. There's a great relationship with those commercial people. They appreciate it, and we'll continue to work with that and develop that as we move forward. The parking bench, or the benches at Brandenburg have been removed. They're being reconstructed, and I think today they were being reinstalled. And the part of that was we had another commercial local vendor that offered to help us rebuild them and fix them and maintain them, but unfortunately they ran into a staffing issue, as everybody is across the board. That kind of fell through, so facilities took it upon themselves, and they should either be redeployed out there this week or tomorrow, or if not, by the end of the week. With that being said, I will continue to do what's best for this township in this role, even though it's appointed. Appointed to me has got nothing to do with it. I work for the people here regardless, and I'll continue to do that until the election finalizes it and determines it. So with that being said, I'll have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 10:30. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.